Chapter 127. Do you know that person just now? Sitting in the living room, ZMO asked. I don't know him. Yi Hao shook his head lightly. Then why did he talk to you? That person seems to have a high status in the Prince Nan's residence. Moreover, his gaze was so respectful. ZMO's eyes revealed a cunning look. She wanted to see any changes in Yi Hao's expression. But what made her disappointed was that Yi Hao sat on the chair with his head lowered and did not pay attention to her at all. ZMO snorted mischievously. Sooner or later, I will dig out your secret. At this time, Song Kong also came to the living room. He glanced coldly at Yi Hao and said coldly, You are Yi Shui? You are the one who hit my son. Yi Hao raised his eyelids and glanced at Song Kong. He ignored him and continued to look at the teacup in his hand. There seemed to be something on it that attracted him. Seeing that Yi Hao sat on the chair and did not understand, the guard beside Song Kong shouted angrily, How dare you? Why don't you bow when you see our Lord Song? I'm not your subordinate. Why should I bow to you? Yi Hao looked at Song Kong as if he was looking at an idiot and said coldly, How dare you? The guard shouted angrily and was about to pounce on Yi Hao. Song Kong did not speak up to stop him. He observed Yi Hao's aura and found that he was only a third-level martial general. As for his personal bodyguard, his strength had reached the fifth-level martial general. It was just right for him to teach this brat who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth a lesson. However, Yi Hao's talent had indeed moved him. However, he could only blame himself for provoking his son. No matter how talented he was, he could not escape death. Moreover, Yi Hao's attitude toward him made him even more unhappy. Be gentle. Don't let the Prince Nan's residence be stained with blood. Song Kong stood aside and said. Yi Hao smiled as he looked at the guard who was rushing towards him. His two fingers were like hooks and attacked his throat. The guard's eyes were filled with ridicule and killing intent. Yi Hao's smile turned cold. Come, don't be impulsive. Drink a cup of tea to cool down. The guard was very close to Yi Hao. He thought that the attack would hit Yi Hao, but Yi Hao dodged it easily. The whole teacup hit the guard's face. The broken pieces of the teacup pierced into the guard's flesh. Blood mixed with the tea leaves. I'm going to kill you. The guard howled in pain. He grabbed the solid wooden stool and threw it at Yi Hao. Be careful, ZMO reminded him with trepidation. The distance between Yi Hao and the guard was less than a meter. The guard was holding a solid wooden stool in his hand. Furthermore, the guard was so angry that he attacked like a madman. It was obvious that the guard's aura was 2 levels higher than Yi Hao's. This meant that Yi Hao was doomed. Song Kong was gloating at the side. It had been a long time since he had expressed his emotions so clearly. Today was the first time he wanted to kill someone so badly. Furthermore, he could already see Yi Hao's head being smashed by the chair. Stop it. Just when Yi Hao wanted to kill the guard, Prince Nan came out with 8th Lord and Sun Xian. 8th Lord saw this scene and immediately shouted anxiously. The guard was stunned by this reprimand. He put down the chair unwillingly. He covered his face and looked at Yi Hao with hatred. If it weren't for 8th Lord's sudden appearance, this young man in front of him would definitely be lying on the ground. However, he didn't know that if it weren't for 8th Lord's reprimand, he would be dead now. Instead, 8th Lord saved him. Greetings, Your Highness Prince Nan. Greetings, 8th Lord. Anger appeared on Song Kang's face. This 8th prince just had to ruin his plans. Song Kong looked at the 8th prince with a displeased expression. However, with Prince Nan here, he didn't dare to be too presumptuous. What's going on here? Prince Nan frowned and asked with dissatisfaction. These people didn't give him any face at all. Could it be that what Sun Xian said was true? Song Kong had become arrogant and didn't put him in his eyes. Otherwise, how could he explain the look in his eyes? Moreover, he dared to act so brazenly in Prince Nan's residence. Because of the scene just now, in the eyes of everyone, Yi Hao was obviously at a disadvantage. Therefore, everyone naturally thought that it was Song Kong who ordered people to make a move. Lord Song, it's not appropriate to make a move in Prince Nan's residence. 8th Lord looked at Song Kong with dissatisfaction. He didn't give him any face. He knew that Yi Shui was a talent that he introduced to his elder brother, but he still wanted to kill him. If he came out a little later, Yi Hao might be lying on the ground now. Lord Song, it's not that I want to criticize you, but it's a little too much to make a move in Prince Nan's residence. Everything can be discussed calmly. Sun Xin also said with a smile. The reprimand in his tone couldn't be more obvious. At the same time, Sun Xin was also puzzled. Who is this Yi Shui? How did he know about Yinhuang Tower? Could he be the Lord? But his height didn't seem like it. Because Yi Hao and Sun Xin met by chance just now, Yi Hao and Sun Xin simply greeted each other. However, Yi Hao didn't reveal his identity. Although Sun Xin was puzzled, he still went to ask for an official position for Yi Hao. He wanted to find news about Yi Hao through Yi Shui. Those who knew about Yinhuang Tower's layout, other than the Lord, were his own people. No matter what, the young man in front of him was definitely not an outsider. Reporting to Prince Nan, this Yi Shui hurt my son. I can't just let it go like this. Song Kong ignored 8th Lord and Sun Xion's reprimand and said with a strong attitude. He also wanted to know if he was more important than this wild boy in Prince Nan's heart. At the same time, he was also very shocked. How long had it been? 8th Lord and Sun Xion actually spoke up for Yi Hao. Who was this young man? How could his methods be so strong? If he gave up, Yi Hao would definitely stand on top of his head in the future. Not to mention his cultivation talent. He was already a 3rd-level martial general at such a young age. It didn't take long for 8th Lord and Sun Xion to stand on his side and fight against him. If this continued, he would lose his position in Prince Nan's residence. Lord Song, don't tell me you don't know your son's nature. He bullies men and women, forcibly abducts, and commits all kinds of crimes. Do you really think that big brother doesn't know? 8th Lord said coldly. This. Cold sweat appeared on Song Kang's head. Of course, he knew his son, but he didn't expect 8th Lord to talk about it openly. If Prince Nan really talked about it, he wouldn't be able to escape the blame. This matter is over. Prince Nan didn't want to offend Song Kong too much. After all, this was a critical moment. If he had to choose, he would definitely kill Yi Shui and choose to rope in Song Kong. Fortunately, Song Jiji's but was not clean. Song Kong knew in his heart that he couldn't figure out Prince Nan's heart, so he could only admit defeat. Chapter 128. However, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't figure out who Yi Shui resembled. He smiled and shook his head, thinking that he was too suspicious. Yi Hao, I wonder if you are willing to pledge your allegiance to me? Prince Nan asked. This subordinate is willing. Yi Hao pretended to be happy and quickly bowed. Good, then I will. Prince Nan was overjoyed. However, when he thought about what kind of position to give Yi Hao, he was troubled. If the position was too high, it would be hard to convince the masses. Song Kong was the first to object. If the position was too low, he was afraid that Yi Hao would have a knot in his heart, and Yi Hao wouldn't be satisfied. Song Kong rolled his eyes and revealed a sly smile. He stood out and cupped his fist. Your Highness, this Yi Shui's strength is not bad. However, he can only be a small commander of the guards. Otherwise, it would be hard to convince the masses at such a young age. Yes, Song Qing is right. Prince Nan agreed. However, 8th Wang Ye and Sun Xian weren't happy. Yi Hao's strength was one of the best in the army. If they only gave him a small commander of the guards, he would only be able to manage 20 people. That would be too much. Moreover, he wouldn't even have the chance to make a name for himself. To put it nicely, he was a small commander. To put it bluntly, he was just a gatekeeper. However, Yi Hao didn't care at all. He wasn't really looking for an official position. He was just preparing to unify the country of Yi. As long as he didn't arouse any suspicion, he didn't care. Song Kong knew that this would happen. He sneered. It's not impossible to be a general. Isn't your Highness worried about Ranmin's matter? As long as Yi Shui can win over Ranmin and stand on the same side as us, how about we give him the title of Great General? Song Kang's words caused everyone's expression to change. Winning over Ranmin was easier said than done. Even if Song Kong personally went out, he was chased away 3 times. Ranmin was brave and fierce. He was one of the major powers near the country of Yi. He had tens of thousands of soldiers and horses under him. However, he was a scattered snob. He didn't establish a country, nor did he rely on any snob. Moreover, Ranmin was the closest to Prince Nan, so Prince Nan wanted a rope in Ranmin. However, Ranmin didn't give him any face at all, but he couldn't do anything about it. Seeing that the fight for the throne was imminent, whether or not he could rope in Ranmin was the key to Prince Nan's success. At this time, it was very difficult. Moreover, the last time Song Kong was chased back, Ranmin said that if Song Kong dared to go again, he would break his legs. Therefore, Song Kong was so scared that he didn't dare to go again. This time, the one who was sent was 8th Wang Ye. Yi Shui, do you agree? Song Kong narrowed his eyes and looked at Yi Hao. In his opinion, the young man was proud and arrogant. He would definitely agree to the temptation of a general's position, but he would definitely not be satisfied with a small commander. As long as Yi Hao dared to agree, he would release some news, and Yi Hao would definitely not be able to return. Yi Hao glanced at Song Kong indifferently and said with a smile, I'm not going. I'm used to being lazy. It's already troublesome for me to be the commander of the guards, let alone being a general. I can't stand it. It's good that you're going. What do you mean you're not going? This is the position of a general. At the very least, you have to command thousands of troops. You have to think carefully. Song Kong thought that Yi Hao had already agreed, but he didn't expect that Yi Hao actually thought that the position of a small commander of the guards was too big. Was he still a normal person? If Yi Hao really refused, how could he kill Yi Hao? He couldn't help but say anxiously. Prince Nan and the others were also a little surprised. They didn't expect Yi Hao to refuse so easily. It wasn't common to see someone who could make Song Kong suffer. Yi Hao's refusal made Song Kong feel like he was punching cotton. It was completely useless. Yi Hao, don't tell me you don't dare? Song Kong looked at Yi Hao with a sneer. His tone was full of ridicule. Song Kong also had no other choice. He could only use this crude method to provoke Yi Hao, hoping that he would agree because he was young and impetuous. You're an idiot, but don't think that others are idiots too. Yi Hao rolled his eyes at Song Kong. Don't you want me to agree? Fine, if it's done. How about we change the condition? Song Kong was about to get angry, but Yi Hao suddenly changed the topic. Song Kang's face darkened as he asked, What condition? If I manage to rope in Ranmin, you will kneel on the ground and slap yourself when you see me. How about that? Yi Hao stated a condition. To Yi Hao, this condition couldn't be any easier. After all, he himself was a prince. Although the Yi country was currently in a state of chaos, this request wasn't too excessive. But in the eyes of others, it was different. To make a prime minister kneel on the ground and slap himself, did he really think of himself as an emperor? Or was he some powerful martial artist? In the eyes of others, although Yi Hao's talent wasn't bad, he was still just a nobody. He was just slightly stronger. But if he wanted Song Kong to kneel, he was really arrogant and condescending. Even 8th Wang Ye's face darkened. He didn't expect Yi Hao to state such a condition. He took a peek, and sure enough, eldest brother's face was also angered. Song Kang's face was even more gloomy. Sun Xian wanted to speak, but he really didn't know Yi Hao's true identity. He didn't know if he should speak or not. If he offended Song Kong for this unknown person, was it worth it? Why? You don't dare? Lord Zhou. Yi Hao narrowed his eyes at Song Kong. It was hard to tell if he was happy or angry. In just a short while, Yi Hao returned Song Kang's words to him, word for word. Everyone looked at Song Kong. They wanted to know what he was going to say. Regardless of whether Song Kong agreed or not, he was at a disadvantage. If he refused, it meant that he didn't dare and that he was admitting defeat. If he agreed, regardless of whether Yi Hao could win over Ranmin or not, he would be the one losing face. This young man can't be the Lord, right? He's actually so smart. Sun Xian stood at the side and looked at Yi Hao. He was shocked. ZMO sat on the chair and looked playfully at Yi Hao's expressionless face. She thought to herself, who is he? He's definitely not a young man from an ordinary family. Just by the fact that he's wearing a set of level 4 spiritual weapons, it means that his background is not simple. No matter who you are, I hope you're not Yi Hao. Otherwise, thinking of this, ZMO couldn't help but feel a little flustered. She was a little depressed and lowered her head to think about her own worries. No matter what, this boy can't be left alive. A murderous intent flashed in Song Kang's eyes. Yi Hao's calmness made him feel threatened. Suddenly, his expression changed, and he smiled. Okay, I agree. In that case, I'll give you 3 days. Seeing that both of them had agreed, Prince Nan didn't interrupt and agreed. Chapter 129. Anyone could see that Song Kang had thought of a way to deal with Yi Hao, which was why he was in such a hurry to return. Brother Yi Shui, why don't you apologize to Lord Song? It's better than losing your life. 8th Prince suddenly advised when he saw Prince Nan leaving. Seeing that Yi Hao was still silent, 8th Prince felt a little guilty. After all, he was the one who brought Yi Hao here. He couldn't just watch Yi Hao lose his life. How about this, Brother Yi Hao? I'll accompany you out of the city. Once we're out of the city, you can leave immediately. With your ability, you can do well wherever you go. Yi Hao looked at his 8th brother strangely. The worry on his face couldn't be faked. He recalled how he was bullied by all his brothers in the palace. Suddenly, Yi Hao asked, 8th Prince, who is the one who posted the wanted posters all over the city? It's just an ambitious prince. After hesitating for a while, 8th Prince suddenly said, Huh. Yi Hao sneered. It was more like a self-deprecating laugh. How could his brother be so nice to a person he had only met once? How could he say that his brother was ambitious? Perhaps this was the family of an emperor. What's wrong? 8th Prince asked with concern. Yi Hao shook his head. Ran Min, Heavenly King Ran. This name was known by everyone in the vicinity of the Yi country. He single-handedly conquered a city that belonged to the Yi country. In less than a year, he developed rapidly and occupied 4 to 5 cities. Not only that, his strength was unfathomable, and he was the target of many major powers in the Yi country. In fact, other than Ran Min, there were 2 other people with strength that wasn't inferior to Ran Min. One was Yu Fei and the other was Suda. Both of them were snobbish, but they refused to be roped in by any forces. This caused the princes to suffer many setbacks. However, they couldn't do anything about it. At this crucial moment, no one was willing to go to war. They only wanted to develop their snobbish forces and fight for the throne in a month's time. The news of Yi Hao and Song Kang's bet immediately spread to the major forces. Of course, most of this was due to Song Kang's efforts. Song Kang sent someone to announce that Yi Hao had spoken rudely and severely injured Ran Min. He didn't even put Ran Min in his eyes. However, no one knew that Song Kang was deliberately spreading the rumor. They thought that it was really Yi Hao who said it. At the same time, all the big powers were investigating who Yi Shui was. Even the marquises had to be polite to Ran Min. So why did Yi Shui dare to speak so rudely to Ran Min? At the same time, the other big powers wanted to see Prince Nan make a fool of himself. No matter what, Yi Shui was Prince Nan's man. It was impossible for Prince Nan to form an alliance with Ran Min. Prince Nan was also kept in the dark. As for Yi Shui, in everyone's eyes, he was just a small fry that was about to be killed by Ran Min. As long as he could destroy the cooperation between Ran Min and Prince Nan, it would be a good thing for everyone else. In order to achieve his goal, Song Kang was willing to do anything. In order to kill Yi Hao, he would do anything even if the relationship between South King City and Ran Min worsened. Father, your move is really smart. As long as this brat dares to go to Ran Min's territory, it will definitely die. Song Jiji's shoulder was wrapped in bandages as he lay on the chair and laughed. Master, if Prince Nan finds out about this, I'm afraid. The old butler looked at the laughing father and son and wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. The smile on Song Jiji's face disappeared, and he said unhappily, What are you afraid of? It's not like you don't know my father's position in Prince Nan's heart. Even if Prince Nan finds out, what can he do? The old butler sighed and didn't say anything else. If he continued, he would only be asking for trouble. Song Kang's face became serious. Looking at his son, he shook his head and smiled bitterly. However, he only had one son, and he could only spoil him. Moreover, Yi Hao had indeed angered him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done this. You are right. As long as I receive news of this brat's death, I will go to Prince Nan and ask for forgiveness. Song Kang naturally understood the old butler's words. However, as long as he could kill Yi Shui, Even if His Highness wasn't happy, so what? Since he had already reached this step, no matter what, it was too late. He was certain that Prince Nan wouldn't abandon him at this crucial moment. Otherwise, Prince Nan's position would be even more fragile. Father, do you think this brat can really cooperate with Ran Min? Suddenly, Song Jiji sat up and asked with a face full of worry. Song Kong paused for a moment and smiled. Don't worry. Every time I treat him with respect, that boor Ran Min ignores me. This time, if I spread the rumor, as long as Ran Min's brain isn't damaged, he will definitely kill Yi Shui. Every time he thought about Ran Min's attitude towards him, Song Kang's heart trembled. He didn't dare to imagine Ran Min's gaze. Therefore, as long as Yi Shui dared to go to Ran Min's territory, he would definitely be torn apart by Ran Min. Interesting. That father and son pair must be very happy right now. Yi Hao laughed in his heart. If there was anyone in this world who could command Ran Min, it would definitely be him. Not to mention cooperating. Even if he asked him to commit suicide, Ran Min would immediately commit suicide without batting an eyelid. If it was any other mission, Yi Hao might have considered it carefully. However, this mission was simply like playing a game. Ran Min must be furious right now and want to kill me. Yi Hao laughed in his heart. He didn't know what Ran Min's expression would be when he saw him. Hey, don't tell me you're really going to look for that Ran Min? ZMO asked with half-closed eyes. She had no choice but to follow Yi Hao. At this moment, ZMO was lying comfortably in Yi Hao's arms. Giant Dragon, are they still there? Yi Hao didn't answer ZMO immediately. Instead, he used his mind to ask the Giant Dragon. They've been following. The Giant Dragon replied cautiously. ZMO, who exactly are you? Why are you following me? Yi Hao was very curious. However, he didn't open his mouth to ask. He didn't know how to start. Of course I'm going. Don't you want to see that old thing kneel down and slap him? Yi Hao said softly. Aren't you afraid of death? That old thing will definitely speak ill of you in front of Ran Min. I heard that Ran Min has a strange personality and has a very bad temper. ZMO was lying in Yi Hao's arms. As she wasn't sitting comfortably, she adjusted her position and continued to ask. How did you know? Yi Hao asked with a smile. Well, I caught a beggar in the city just now and asked him. I even gave him a silver coin. ZMO blushed and said embarrassedly. It's okay. Ran Min has a bad temper. I have a good temper. Yi Hao glanced at ZMO and said lightly. Chapter 130. When ZMO heard Yi Hao's words, she raised her eyebrows. Don't ask me to save you. 8 Delta 1 Chinese net. You? Yi Hao looked down at the 2 small hills in front of ZMO and smacked his lips. Ran Min probably doesn't like such small ones. ZMO noticed Yi Hao's burning gaze and covered her chest. However, when she heard Yi Hao's words, she was like a kitten whose tail had been stepped on. She immediately flew into a rage and put her hands down. She purposely stuck out her chest. Which part of me is small? Tell me clearly. Yi Hao became even more unscrupulous. His eyes kept wandering around ZMO's chest. Yi Hao secretly nodded in his heart. This little girl's chest was indeed not bad. You big pervert. I'm not done with you. ZMO knew that she had been tricked by Yi Hao. She even purposely showed it to Yi Hao. Thinking of this, ZMO became even more shy. Ha! How dare you scold my people? I really want to see. Hearing his subordinate's report, Ran Min was not angry. Instead, he laughed. Heavenly King, do you want me to kill that Yi Shui directly? One of his subordinates stood up and said angrily. In their hearts, Ran Min was a godlike existence. They absolutely could not tolerate the slightest insult. When Ran Min thought of his lord who had disappeared for half a year, he could not help but show a longing expression. However, he could not brazenly send people to look for him. The more he did, the more surprised he was. He had gained a lot of combat experience in battle. Relying on his own talent, he forcibly raised his strength to a level 9 martial general. Only then did he realize how big the outside world was. Therefore, the pace of expansion gradually slowed down. In the past half a year, many forces had tried to rope him in. However, without Yi Hao's order, Ran Min rejected all the temptations and threats. South King, do you really think that I, Ran Min, am easy to bully? If it wasn't for my lord, I would definitely destroy you. Ran Min looked in the direction of South King City and said softly, if that's the case, I'll take Yi Shui's head. Consider it a warning. Old K looked at his angry subordinates and ordered, go to the city gate and give that brat Yi Shui a verbal warning. If he doesn't know what's good for him, just kill him. Yes, the group of subordinates was overjoyed. They had already sentenced Yi Hao to death in their hearts. The Heavenly King had tolerated the South King's city time and time again. This group of subordinates couldn't stand it anymore. If it wasn't for Old K's restraint, they would have already led their troops to attack the South King City. This time, whether or not Yi Shui was the one who said those words, it was a slap to Ran Min's face. No matter what, they had to make an example out of him. They had to let the surrounding powers know that they were not easy to bully. Yi Shui's name instantly spread to the surrounding forces. The spies of the various forces were all waiting to see if Yi Shui would come and how Old K would deal with it. Many people thought that Yi Shui wouldn't go to Ran Min City. There were also people who thought that other forces deliberately spread the news to destroy the relationship between Ran Min and the South King. No matter what, all the forces placed their attention on Yi Shui. However, it was only a few hours' journey. An entire day had passed, and Yi Shui still hadn't arrived at Ran Min City. This made the various forces very confused. Could it be that Yi Shui got scared halfway and ran away? This made the various forces anxious. They hurriedly sent people to investigate along the road, but they found nothing. The second day passed just like that. However, there was still no news of Yi Shui. This made people think that Yi Shui ran away and didn't dare to go to Ran Min City. Father, that brat couldn't have really run away with your daughter-in-law, right? Song Jiji was crying at this moment. He was still thinking about Zmo in his heart. Song Kong also looked uncertain. Logically speaking, that brat dared to make a bet with him. He shouldn't be so cowardly. However, based on this distance, he didn't know how many times he could go back and forth in 2 days. The people that he sent to follow Yi Hao also didn't bring back any news. They should be dead. At this moment, 8th Wangye was sitting in his courtyard and listening to his subordinate's report. He was delighted. It seems that brother Yi Shui really listened to my advice and left by himself. This is good too. At least he can save his own life. Yi Shui. At this moment, Yi Hao was sitting on the horse in a daze. Zmo actually had a lollipop in her mouth. Of course, it was given to her by Yi Hao. At this moment, Zmo was sucking on a lollipop and mumbling Yi Hao's name. What's wrong? The lollipop is gone? Here you go. Yi Hao very skillfully took out a lollipop and handed it to Zmo. Zmo pouted and looked unhappy. However, when she saw the lollipop, her face brimmed with a smile again. Aya, you made me dizzy. Zmo put away the lollipop and immediately remembered the serious matter. It's already the 3rd day. You didn't plan to run away from the beginning, did you? Yi Hao glanced at Zmo and scratched his head embarrassedly. You can't laugh at me if I tell you. Zmo glanced at Yi Hao. I told you to run away from the beginning. What's there to laugh at? Yi Hao's head was full of black lines. Again, he said carefully, not this, not this. Zmo couldn't remember Yi Hao. What else was worth laughing at? Suddenly, she thought of something and turned pale with fright. You didn't peek at me bathing yesterday, did you? Good, Yi Shui. Now you have to be responsible for me. Tell me honestly, how's my figure? Yi Hao hugged his head in pain. What was going on? The hole in her brain was too big. He could only tell the truth. I'm lost. In fact, Yi Hao had felt that something was wrong from the first afternoon, but for the sake of his face, he didn't say anything. He thought that he could get there by walking forward, but the more he walked, the further he went. Just now, when he was sitting on the horse, he was analyzing the route. Zmo was stunned. The lollipop in her mouth almost fell to the ground. She asked in disbelief, You are lost. Ha ha ha. Zmo held her belly and laughed out loud. Tears almost came out of her eyes. What's so funny? There are no road signs here, and there's no navigation. Where can I find it? Yi Hao said in a low voice. In the past, on Earth, he often got lost, let alone in this strange world. How could he know the way? As soon as he returned to Yi Hao, he took the map given by Jiu Hongling and got lost in the air while riding a giant dragon, let alone on this land. At first, he could tell the direction clearly, but now he couldn't even tell the directions. What's so difficult about this? Go and catch the person behind. Then you'll know the way. Zmo laughed so hard that her stomach hurt. She said to Yi Hao. Chapter 131. Yi Hao, is my body white? Zmo suddenly asked shyly. Yi Hao recalled the scene in his mind and said subconsciously, white. Yi Hao, you said you didn't peek. Zmo wanted to throw the lollipop in her hand at Yi Hao. However, after taking a few bites of the lollipop in her hand, she thought better of it. Besides, Yi Hao had already slipped away. After a while, Yi Hao came back with a shifty-eyed man in his hand. Young master, please spare my life. I'm just a passerby. The shifty-eyed man was thrown to the ground by Yi Hao. He quickly got up and knelt down to beg for mercy. Song Yin, level 7 martial artist. You have a sick mother at home. Yi Hao narrowed his eyes and said to Song Yin, who was kneeling on the ground. The more Song Yin heard, the more frightened he became. He kept wiping his cold sweat with his hands. Young master, please spare my life. I know I was wrong, Song Yin said fearfully. This was because Yi Hao was right. There were some things that even his mother did not tell him, but Yi Hao knew about them. Get up. Where's Ranmin City? Lead the way. Don't try to play tricks, Yi Hao warned Song Yin. He did not want to be calculative with this kind of small fry. Song Yin was stunned. He thought that he would not be able to escape death after being discovered by Yi Hao. He did not expect that it would be so easy to just lead the way. He quickly raised his head to thank Yi Hao. However, he found a pill in front of him. When Yi Hao saw Song Yin in a daze, Zmo was also very curious. Yi Hao took back the pill and said, "This is a spiritual pill. It can completely cure your mother's illness. As long as you lead the way obediently, this pill is yours." Thank you, young master. I should die 1,000 times for following you. Song Yan's eyes were brimming with tears as he fiercely slapped his own mouth. This little spirit pill was priceless. Even if he helped Song Kong sell his life for a lifetime, he still wouldn't be able to buy this pill. Moreover, her mother's illness couldn't be delayed any longer. Otherwise, she would have gone back long ago with Yi Hao. Just for the reward money, she had followed Yi Hao for 3 days. She had already eaten all the food she had with her and had been starving for the whole day. I won't pursue the matter with you. Can you tell me how you found out about him when you peeked at me while I was showering? Zmo asked curiously. Looking at Song Yan's expression, she knew that Yi Hao was right. Unless Yi Hao and Song Yin had colluded. But this was almost impossible. Yi Hao must have some kind of mystical immortal technique. If you want to know, give me a kiss. Yi Hao saw Zmo's curious face and said with a chuckle. All right. Zmo thought for a while and couldn't resist the curiosity in her heart. She quickly kissed Yi Hao on the cheek and said, "Tell me quickly." Yi Hao was slightly stunned. He had wanted to use this request to make Zmo back off, who knew that this little girl was so curious that she actually dared to kiss him. However, he absolutely couldn't tell her about the detection technique. Yi Hao had an idea and moved closer to Zmo's ear, making Zmo's ear itch. But in order to know the answer, she could only endure it. I guessed. Zmo's little face stiffened. After a while, she suddenly realized that she had been tricked by Yi Hao again and said, "Stupid Yi Hao, you lied to me again. Give me back my first kiss." "Madam, if you want to give it back, I'll give it back to you. Why are you shouting so loudly?" After being shouted by Zmo, Yi Hao was scared out of his wits. There were still 2 martial emperors hiding in the dark. If they thought that he had bullied his young lady, he wouldn't be able to live. Looking at Yi Hao's pouting appearance, Zmo said unhappily, "In your dreams, you still want to take advantage of me. Do you think we've been tricked? It's already been 3 days. How can there be any Yi Shui?" A few of Ranmin's subordinates stood on the city wall and said unhappily, "I think Yishue is most likely afraid of our heavenly king and ran away halfway. Don't let me meet Yishue. Otherwise, I'll definitely drain his blood. Let's see where he gets the water from." At this time, in order to deal with Yishue, Ranmin's subordinates hadn't slept for 3 full days. At this time, they were naturally suppressing a bellyful of anger. As for the spies in the other cities, they had already cursed Yihao tens of thousands of times in their hearts. If it wasn't for the fact that they couldn't return before the 3-day deadline, who would still be standing guard here? If they knew that Yihao was lost, who knew if these people would be so angry that they would vomit blood and die? In the afternoon, Yihao and Song Yin finally arrived at Ranmin City. It was because he had lost his way and walked too far. If it wasn't for Song Yin, even if he was given another 10 days to half a month, he still wouldn't be able to find his way back. "Young master, why don't you just leave? If you go to see Ranmin, it won't bode well for you." Song Yin couldn't bear it. Ranmin's reputation was deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Even if it was for the sake of that elixir, he couldn't just watch Yihao die. Song Yin struggled in his heart for a while before he caught up with Yihao's horse. Also, official Song, when you left, he already spread the news that you are unfavorable. If you go to Ranmin City, Ranmin will definitely not let you go. Yihao was very satisfied with Song Yin's words. At the very least, his elixir wasn't wasted. Thinking of this, Yihao took out the elixir. "Then this is for you. You don't have to follow me anymore." Seeing that Yihao was determined, Song Yin didn't stop him. He reached out and took the elixir. If he continued to follow Yihao, he wouldn't be able to get away with it. Song Yin jumped off his horse and kowtowed 3 times to Yihao's back. It was to thank Yihao for giving him the elixir, to thank Yihao for sparing his life, and to send Yihao on his last journey. Because in his eyes, Yihao would definitely die this time. There was absolutely no possibility of him coming back alive. Therefore, he kowtowed a few times to repay Yihao's kindness. As for collecting Yihao's corpse, he didn't even dare to think about it. Yishue seems to be here. Hearing the sound of the horse's hooves, the people of every force around the city thought of this at the same time. Look at how popular I am everywhere I go." Yihao saw a group of people surrounding the city gate. At this time, they were all looking in his direction. Yihao said very arrogantly, "ZMO, couldn't be bothered to pay attention to him. Can't you see that these people are looking for trouble with you? You should thank the heavens if they don't cut you into pieces." ZMO was curious. What other trump cards did Yihao have? No matter how she looked at him, he didn't look like a reckless person. But even though he knew that he was going to die, she didn't feel anything at all. ZMO looked at Yihao's face and found that she still couldn't tell whether he was happy or angry. It was hard to tell. When the princess is in danger, save the princess first. The thin martial emperor said with a reproachful look on his face. "This brat is courting death, but he still wants to take our princess with him." "I don't think so." The fat martial emperor looked at Yihao's figure with admiration. Chapter 132. Stop. Are you Yishue? When Yihao stopped his horse at King Ran City, a leader stood out and asked loudly. "Yes," Yihao said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. At the same time, his eyes were filled with admiration. Ranmin did not let him down. The quality of these soldiers was also very good. Looking at the scale of this city, it was not smaller than King Man City. His expectations of Ranmin were not wasted, and his 5 million taels of gold were not wasted either. "Good boy, it really is you. Men, capture him." Hearing Yihao admit his identity, the leader was surprised. He did not think that Yihao would really come. Although his courage was commendable, it did not change his determination to kill Yihao. Under the commander's command, 60 to 70 archers and a few hundred soldiers appeared around Yihao. They were ready for battle and surrounded Yihao. "Boy, if you want to blame someone, blame yourself for insulting our heavenly king. What else can you say when you are about to die?" The leader was a level 6 general. Because Yihao had concealed his strength, the leader was not afraid of Yihao. Moreover, there were so many soldiers here. "I wonder if this lord can help me pass a message to Heavenly King Ran." Yi Hao said with a smile. He did not want to attack his own soldiers. Moreover, there were many people around who were laughing at him. Is this boy crazy? Is he still trying to rope in Ranmin at this time? He is indeed a young man. However, his courage is commendable. He knows that he will most likely die, yet he still dares to come to King Ran City. What courage! I think he doesn't know what death is. When the leader heard Yi Hao's words, he pondered. In his life, he had always admired courageous people. Otherwise, he would not have pledged his life to follow Ranmin. He observed Yi Hao. At such a young age, he was able to remain calm in the face of danger. There was no trace of fear on his face. The leader admired Yi Hao from the bottom of his heart. General Qin, this boy made us wait for 3 days in vain. Why are you wasting your breath on him? Just kill him. That's right. We can't disturb the heavenly king for this brat. Furthermore, this brat boasted shamelessly and even scolded the heavenly king. When General Qin heard his subordinate's words, he was a little hesitant. He looked at Yi Hao. Yi Hao smiled faintly. Do you have any proof that I insulted Heavenly King Ran? Everyone knows that I made a bet with Song Kong. What if Song Kong was the one behind this? As he spoke, Yi Hao glanced at Song Kang's spy. When Song Kang's spy heard Yi Hao's words, he felt guilty and immediately hid in the crowd. This scene naturally fell into General Qin's eyes. He somewhat believed Yi Hao's words. Say it. If you have anything to say, I'll immediately send someone to report it to the Heavenly King. Go and ask your Heavenly King. One day in a restaurant, someone lent him one. 5 million gold taels. How's the food he bought with the gold taels, and whether he should return the money? There were many spies here. Yi Hao couldn't reveal his identity, so he couldn't say too much. And this one, 5 million gold taels, was the development fund that he had given to Ranmin, Yu Fei, and Suda. Only a few of them knew about it. Hence, as long as someone reported it to Ranmin, Ranmin would know instantly. However, Yi Hao's words caused a huge uproar. 5 million gold taels. And it was gold taels. In a place like this, it wasn't a small amount. I think this brat is really crazy. He actually came to King Ran City to ask for money. Haha, I'm dying of laughter. I thought he had something to say. Look at him. 5 million gold taels? I think he's crazy about money. This is just delaying his death by a little. The spies from the various factions, as well as some of the onlookers, laughed loudly when they heard Yi Hao's words. General, this brat is making a fool out of us. Ranmin will owe him money. In my opinion, we should just kill him. That's right, General. We can't let the other factions see us as a joke. Yi Hao was indifferent to the ridicule around him. He continued to speak to General Qin. Whether it's true or not, General Qin, send someone to report it and you will know the result. If you don't report it, no one will be able to escape death. Arrogant brat, what are you talking about? A deputy general reprimanded Yi Hao loudly. General Qin had been observing Yi Hao all this time. In his heart, he already believed a little about Yi Hao. However, if he reported it himself, and there was no such thing, he wouldn't be able to avoid punishment. But if it was true, if he didn't report it, the punishment would be even more severe. As long as you report it, Ranmin will definitely come out of the city to welcome me into the city. Yi Hao wasn't angry at the deputy general's words and continued to speak. If you dare to make a fool out of me, I will definitely cut you into pieces. General Qin warned. At the same time, he turned around and gave some instructions to the deputy general. The deputy general looked at Yi Hao unhappily and turned to enter the city. ZMO raised her head and took out the lollipop in her mouth. She looked at Yi Hao unhappily and said, "You are lying to me again. Aren't you an orphan? Where did you get so much money to lend to Ranmin?" Yi Hao knew that ZMO would ask this. Did I say that I borrowed it? That was what my master told me. I feel that they're the same person. As for whether it is true or not, we can only take a gamble. If you don't run first, I will cover for you. ZMO's face froze. She looked at Yi Hao in disbelief and said, "You are saying that this is a story that your master told." ZMO felt that there was nothing left to live for. What if it is true? Yi Hao continued to tease ZMO. The onlookers were also waiting anxiously at this time. They wanted to see if Ranmin would come out, or if Yi Hao was lying and would be cut into pieces. General Qin, who was closest to Yi Hao, had a dark face. He already had a feeling that he had been tricked by Yi Hao. This was because he had heard every single word that Yi Hao and Zmo had said. General Qin had unspeakable bitterness in his heart. At this time, his mood was the worst. Everyone was looking at him. If this matter was made up by Yi Hao's master, he would be blamed and would definitely be humiliated. He was also praying that what Yi Hao's master said was true. This way, he could at least save his face. Looking at Yi Hao's calm face, General Qin really could not guess what Yi Hao was thinking. Was he not afraid that his master had made up the story? Moreover, there were so many people with the same name in the Wangwa continent. What if it was not the same person? General Qin realized that he was more nervous than anyone else. This was related to his image in the hearts of Ranmin and all the soldiers. Why is he not here yet? Could it be fake? After waiting for a long time, General Qin realized that there was a trace of cold sweat on his forehead. Is the Heavenly King done going to the toilet? I have something to report. The deputy general stood in the living room and kept pacing. Chapter 133. Under the threat of the vice general, the guard could only look for Ranmin with a bitter face. Heavenly King, General Hua is looking for you. The guard covered his nose and shouted, Don't you know that my stomach hurts? Tell him to come here. Ranmin's voice came from the toilet. Vice General Hua covered his nose and came to the toilet. Heavenly King, Yi Shui said that you owe him 5 million gold taels. He asked me to ask you when you will pay him back. How much? He's crazy. You guys are crazy too. Ranmin said angrily. Vice General Hua's face changed, and he quickly apologized to Ranmin. He was furious. This kid really tricked us. General Qin actually believed him. Let's see how I will deal with him. Vice General Hua angrily rushed to the city gate. After a while, Ranmin suddenly ran out with his pants up. He grabbed the guard and asked anxiously, Where's Vice General Hua? The guard was dumbfounded. Seeing that Dian Wei had not pulled up his pants yet, he said subconsciously, He just left. Who told you to let him go? Ranmin was furious. How much did he say? The guard's face turned bitter. Dian Wei was the vice general, and he was just a guard. He could not control him. 5 million gold taels. Oh no! Ranmin pulled up his pants and hurriedly ran to the city gate. 5 million gold taels. That was the allowance given to him by the Lord. Could it be that the Lord was here? He had not heard from the Lord for almost a year. Now that he was rejected, he kept praying in his heart, Those bastards, please don't do anything to the Lord. Vice General Hua, how was it? General Qin knew that the situation was not good when he saw the vice general coming back with a dark face, but he still asked. We were tricked by this kid. The vice general looked at Yi Hao, who was riding on the horse, and said with a gloomy voice, We were tricked by this kid. The onlookers also noticed that Ranmin did not come out, and Vice General Hua's face was extremely gloomy. They started to clamor again. I told you that this kid was lying. How could Ranmin owe him money? General Qin, do you really believe anyone's words? It can't be 150 copper coins, right? Ha ha! Guards, take this kid down. General Qin heaved a sigh of relief. Hearing the mockery around him, General Qin waved his hand and shouted with a cold expression. Yi Hao frowned. What the hell is Ranmin doing? Wasn't my hint obvious enough? Yi Hao thought helplessly. Fatty, this brat is done for. He actually dared to lie here. The thin martial emperor gloated. The fat martial emperor ignored the thin martial emperor and shook his head with a smile. He still thought highly of Yi Hao. At the very least, not many people of Yi Hao's age could remain calm in the face of danger. With General Qin's order, the archers instantly pulled their bows to the maximum. Yi Hao frowned. Was he really going to attack his subordinates today? Give me. General Qin raised his hand and signaled the archers. Yi Hao narrowed his eyes and prepared to summon the dragon and leave at any time. At worst, his identity would be exposed, but it would only ruin his plan. Stop. Just at the crucial moment, a deafening voice resounded in the city. The archers immediately put down the bows in their hands because they were very familiar with this voice. Who else could it be other than Ranmin? The gloating crowd's smile froze. They didn't understand why another accident happened at this crucial moment. Could it be that Ranmin wanted to attack personally to show off his prestige? Ranmin was panting heavily. Luckily, he arrived in time. However, when he saw the young man on the horse, he thought for a while and knew what was going on. He didn't expose him. Brother Yishue, please come my Ran King City for a gathering. I have offended you just now. Ranmin cupped his fist and apologized. What's going on? Ranmin actually called him brother. Does Ranmin really owe him money? The people of the major forces were shocked. This was because Ranmin's attitude towards Yihao was too friendly. In the past half a year, Ranmin didn't give face to anyone, not even to the Hozhe. Now, he actually called Yihao brother. This was bad news for many of the snobbish people. Based on the situation, South King City and Ran King City's alliance was bound to succeed. More people were curious about who this Yishue was that Ranmin had to personally come out of the city to welcome him. Ranmin brought Yihao and Zmo into the Castellan's residence. It could be seen that Ranmin was really focused on developing his strength. The Castellan's residence was very simple, and there weren't even any decorations. Ranmin saw that there was no one around, and Zmo was naturally recognized by Ranmin as his mistress. He said excitedly, "Ma, you want to ask about my master, right?" "Sai, my master just passed away." Yihao didn't wait for Ranmin to call him master and quickly stopped him. "Master Zhu actually passed away." "Sai." Old K's reaction was also very fast, as he quickly said with regret. Yihao looked at Zmo guiltily. When he realized that Zmo's attention wasn't here, he heaved a sigh of relief. Yihao sat down. "You should know why I'm here. I'm here on behalf of Prince Nan. I hope that you can cooperate with Prince Nan." Yihao's sitting posture was exactly the same as before. This made Ranmin even more certain that Yihao was his master. He just didn't understand why he couldn't tell the truth in his own residence. However, Yihao must have his reasons for doing so. Ranmin looked at Zmo cautiously and said with a smile, "Of course. Master, I'm indebted to Master Zhu. Of course, I'll help his disciple with this request." "All right, I'll go back now." Yihao looked around and picked up the vase to take a look. Feeling bored, he put it down again and said. Ranmin quickly stood up. "Let me send you off, brother Yishue. No need to trouble yourself. I'm in a hurry to go back to South King City and report to Prince Nan." Yihao smiled and waved his hand. He pulled Zmo and walked out. When Ranmin saw the two of them disappear from his sight, he quickly walked to the vase and poured out a piece of paper. He looked around and realized that there was no one around. He immediately opened it and read it. After reading it, Ranmin quickly destroyed the paper. Ranmin immediately gathered the soldiers and announced that he would cooperate with South King City. This news spread quickly among the major powers. The East, West, North, and South Kings were furious. Originally, they wanted to see a rift between Prince Nan and Ranmin. However, they didn't expect a nobody to be the disciple of Ranmin's benefactor. Just like that, South King City and Ranmin City reached an agreement. The only one who didn't have any reaction was the fifth prince. He was unpredictable. Logically speaking, he should be the most nervous. After all, the stronger the other powers were, the greater the threat to his position. However, he didn't seem to care. Chapter 134. Yihao. On the way back to South King City, Zmo suddenly shouted. Yihao's expression stiffened. Zmo giggled and said, "Why are you so nervous? Are you Yihao? How is that possible?" Yihao's smile was a little awkward. He wondered if Zmo had been staying by his side to investigate if he was Yihao. "Hee, look at how scared you are. I'm just joking with you." Zmo saw Yihao's awkward expression and smiled playfully. At Zmo's request, Yihao did not return to South King City directly. Instead, he turned around and went to other cities to play. Yihao thought that there was still a month before the competition for the throne. There was still a lot of time, so there was no point in returning to South King City now. Along the way, The laughter of young men and women filled the air. Half a month later, Yi Hao opened his hazy eyes in the morning and walked to Zmo's room. He knocked on the door and said, "Mo, it's time to get up. We should hurry back." In less than half a month, the competition for the throne would be held in the capital of the country of Yi. Yi Hao's plan was to start the return journey today. Why is there no movement? Yi Hao pushed lightly and found that the door opened. He quickly walked into the room and found that it was empty. "Master, you're here. The lady who accompanied you asked me to pass this to you." At this time, a waiter came up to clean the room and happened to see Yi Hao. He took out a letter from his chest and handed it to Yi Hao. Yi Hao took the letter, took out some broken silver, and handed it to the waiter. "Brother Yi Hao, thank you for playing with me these days. From Mo or who loves you." Yi Hao read the letter in shock. He also knew that Zmo had already guessed his identity. No wonder she asked him for more than 10 packs of lollipops 2 days ago. At first, he felt strange. Now that he thought about it, it turned out that Zmo had already planned to leave. Through the letter, Yi Hao learned that his father's kidnapping. His father's abduction was related to Zmo. Zmo's appearance in the country of Yi was also to look for him. Her goal was to bring him back to the country of Yi. However, Zmo was compassionate and was afraid that the two martial emperors would know Yi Hao's identity. She could only find an excuse to leave. As for his father's safety, Zmo told him that as long as he did not appear, his father would be safe. Furthermore, he should not go look for her before reaching the realm. How did I offend the martial emperors? Yi Hao was very puzzled because Zmo had repeatedly warned him not to look for her before he reached the martial god realm. That way, he would not be able to save his father's life and might even lose his own life in vain. Could it be related to my mother? But Yi Hao had a bold guess. He had never heard anyone mention his mother since he was young. However, Yi Hao could not understand. If it was his mother, why would she threaten his life? Thinking of this, Yi Hao did not dare to think further. He was afraid that he would not be able to accept it. If it was really because of his mother, moreover, Zmo did not leave any information about herself in the letter. This made Yi Hao even more confused. Great Sun Dynasty, wait for me. Yi Hao wanted to find out about the power behind the Mo. There was only one clue, and that was the Great Sun Dynasty. "Father, I will find you. I will solve the mystery myself." Yi Hao clenched his fist. Looking at the tear stains on the letter, he could not help but feel his heart ache. "Silly girl, wait for me." 10 days later, Yi was very nervous. The entire country was on high alert. The 5 major powers gathered in the capital of Yi. They had decided to choose a true emperor. The rest would give up their power unconditionally. It had to be said that danger and benefits coexisted. If they won, they would obtain the entire Yi. Most importantly, they would be recognized by the 10,000 countries continent and become a true duchy. If they lost, they would be happy for nothing and would have to hand over their power. The 5 princes were not the only ones present. Yanhuang Tower, Zhao Country, Qin Country, a mysterious power, and 2 marquee-class powers were also present. Oh my God, don't tell me I got lost at this crucial moment again. Yi Hao did not have the energy to complain. He should have reached the capital of Yi 5 days ago. However, it was starting tomorrow, and he seemed to have lost his way again. Prince Nan's military flag. Seems like I made the right choice this time. Late at night, just as Yi Hao was about to give up, he suddenly saw a military camp. He walked closer and was delighted. He immediately asked the giant dragon to find a deserted place and let him down. The night guard saw Yi Hao's figure from afar. He raised his torch and asked cautiously, "Who is it?" "I am Yi Hao. Please report to Prince Nan." Yi Hao walked out and smiled. "All right, wait a moment." The guard did not recognize Yi Hao, but he had heard of Yi Hao's name. He immediately asked a soldier to watch over Yi Hao while he went to report. "Father, Yi Shui is back." When Song Jiji received the news, he immediately ran to Song Kang's tent and said anxiously. At this moment, Song Kang was still awake and was preparing for tomorrow. When he heard Song Jiji's words, the brush in his hand fell to the table. Because of Yi Hao, he had been scolded by Prince Nan. Song Kong could clearly feel that after that incident, Prince Nan's attitude towards him was not as warm as before. However, Yi Hao had disappeared for almost a month. After his performance, the gap between him and Prince Nan finally disappeared. At this crucial moment, Yi Hao actually returned. How could he accept this? Father, why don't we go and kill him now? Song Jiji made up his mind and said. Song Kong immediately shook his head. Right now, Ranmin is with us. If we attract his attention, neither of us will be able to escape. Father, what do you think of Prince Nan's attitude towards you now? Song Jiji suddenly asked. Song Kang's expression froze. Seeing Song Jiji's expression, he guessed, Jier, we can't do this now. This is a crucial moment. We will lose more than we gain. But father, how much hope do you have for Prince Nan to take the throne? Song Jiji asked unwillingly. With Ranmin's help, at least 50%. Song Kong said confidently. One must know that 50% was already very high. With a 50% chance, it was at least higher than the others. But if Prince Nan fails, we won't have a chance. Song Jiji said worriedly. And father, can you really kneel down, kowtow, and slap Yi Hao? Father, don't hesitate. Let's just take the army and find a city. Father, you can call yourself a king. Why do you have to lower yourself to them? Song Jiji saw that Song Kong was moved and continued. All right, go and call Generals Ding Feng and Zhang Bao over. Chapter 135. Don't worry, young Master Song. We'll be there right away. Ding Feng and Zhang Bao said respectfully to Song Jiji. Ding Feng and Zhang Bao had already obtained the highest command of the two armies since they left Yanwang Tower. Under Yi Hao's instructions, they naturally wouldn't reject Song Kang's secret invitation. This made them even more comfortable as they led one army each. Now, the three armies under the first prince were truly under Yi Hao's control. Zhang Bao, what do you think we should do? After Song Jiji left, Ding Feng asked for Zhang Bao's opinion. Zhang Bao cautiously looked outside the tent. Seeing that there was no one else, she said, Didn't General Rand say that the Lord is back? I feel that the Lord is definitely going to fight for the throne this time, so we don't have to bother with the father and son. All right, we'll report them to Prince Nan now. Ding Feng nodded and was about to get up. Don't be anxious. Without conclusive evidence, do you think Prince Nan will believe us? Zhang Bao pulled Ding Feng back and asked him to sit down. Let's pretend to cooperate with them first. Yi Hao stood there and waited for a while. To his surprise, 8th Wang Ye personally came out to welcome him. This made him feel even more bitter. He really couldn't compare to an outsider. Brother Yi Shui, where have you been all this time? You made me worry for more than a month. 8th Wang Ye hugged Yi Hao in his arms and called out enthusiastically. The joy on his face couldn't be faked at all. Yi Hao smiled and replied, had something due back home, so I sent her there. I left for a month. After I heard that you were here, I finally caught up. Even without Yi Hao's words, 8th Wang Ye also noticed that ZMO was missing. Hearing Yi Hao's words, he naturally believed it. It's good that you're back. Big brother is drinking with Prince Ran. Let's go over now. All right then. Yi Hao didn't want to refuse. He was secretly happy. Ran Min and Prince Nan's relationship had progressed well in this month. I'll let you be happy for a while. You'll be crying tomorrow. Yi Hao was very excited when he thought of the expressions of his brothers tomorrow. Brother Yi Shui, you're finally back. As soon as he entered the tent, Ran Min immediately rushed over and gave Yi Hao a big hug. Yi Hao's ears is ears. Yi Hao, I've already informed him. Yi Hao let go of Ran Min and smiled. Thank you for your concern, Prince Ran. Greetings to Prince Nan. At first, Prince Nan was a bit dissatisfied. Yi Hao had ignored him the moment he entered, but when he saw Yi Hao greet him, he immediately smiled. No matter what, he had to give Yi Hao face. After all, Old K had allied with him because of Yi Hao. Brother Yi Shui, there's no need to be so courteous. Please take a seat, Prince Nan said politely as he pointed to a table filled with food. Before Yi Hao could sit down, there was a loud commotion outside. Could it be that another prince has sent someone to attack? Everyone was suspicious. However, there was a rule between the brothers. It had to be a fair competition. Who would sneak attack at this time? Reporting to Prince Nan. Song Kong has rebelled. A guard quickly ran into the tent and knelt on the ground. What? Ran Min collapsed on the chair. He didn't believe it. Song Kong had always been loyal to him. He also treated Song Kong with sincerity. He wanted to say that anyone would betray him, but he never thought that Song Kong would betray him. Moreover, at this critical moment, it was a fatal blow to him. Quick, get General Sun to bring people to suppress them. Prince Nan's face flashed with a trace of panic as he quickly shouted, Prince Nan, let's go and take a look. Yi Hao looked at Ran Min. How could he be a good emperor? He shook his head in disappointment. He was even more convinced that his choice to take the throne was correct. Okay, let's go. I want to kill that old thing with my own hands. Hearing Yi Hao's words, Ran Min immediately pulled out his sword. Haha, father, look at these 40,000 soldiers. They'll be ours in the future. Why do they have to work for the Yi family? Song Jiji was riding on a horse. He was wearing a suit of armor. Tens of thousands of torches made him even more high-spirited. Ji is right. Father was too apprehensive. Song Kong said with satisfaction, Father, I'll bring people to capture Yi Shui and Prince Nan and those dogs for you right now. I'll make them kowtow to you and admit their mistakes. Thinking about how Yi Hao broke his arm, Song Jiji's anger soared. With so many soldiers in his hands, he was confident. No need. We're here. Yi Hao looked at Song Jiji with narrowed eyes. Brat, do you remember how you beat me that day? I'll tear you to pieces today. Seeing Yi Hao's contemptuous gaze, Song Jiji said viciously, Shut up. Prince Nan chased after him on his horse and scolded angrily. When Song Kong and his son saw Ran Min, they felt guilty and looked nervous. Men, take them down. Song Jiji waved his hand and shouted anxiously. At this moment, a group of people came from afar. It was Zhang Bao and Ding Feng. Generals, you've come at the right time. Kill these people for me. The servility in Song Kang's body could not be changed easily. When he saw the first prince in front of him, he panicked. He anxiously ordered Zhang Bao and Ding Feng. Men, take down these traitors. Zhang Bao looked coldly at Song Kong and his son and waved her hand expressionlessly. A group of soldiers quickly dragged Song Kong and his son off their horses. The smile on Song Kong and his son's faces disappeared. Zhang Bao, Your Highness, please forgive us. Song Kong and his son try to force us to rebel. We've already taken him down. Zhang Bao and Ding Feng immediately said to Ran Min. When Ran Min saw Ding Feng and Zhang Bao bring people over, he thought that things were bad and was thinking about how to escape. He didn't expect that Zhang Bao and Ding Feng would take down Song Kong and his son. This made him very happy. Generals, you've done well in taking down the traitors. This prince will reward you. Ran Min tidied up his messy clothes and coughed. Thank you, Your Highness. The two of them were very happy. Ran Min believed that he had used his charm to make Zhang Bao and Ding Feng so loyal to him, making them more confident in fighting for the throne tomorrow. Your Highness Prince Nan, this old subject knows his wrongs. Please spare me. When Song Kong saw Ran Min's gloomy eyes filled with killing intent, he panicked and immediately knelt on the ground. Chapter 136. Brat, it's all because of you. If I have to die, let's die together. Hearing Prince Nan's order, Song Kong went crazy and pounced on Yi Hao like an old dog. Be careful. Ran Min and 8th Wangye shouted at the same time. You're just a crazy dog. How dare you try to bite me? Yi Hao squinted his eyes. He held his sword with both hands and instantly split Song Kong into two. So fast. Although Yi Hao only used 1/3 of the speed of the butterfly steps, in the eyes of Prince Nan and the others, Song Kong was killed in a flash by Yi Hao. Song Kang's rebellion was something that no one expected. When the other forces received the news, Song Kong was already killed. It was very disappointing. The next day, the 5 princes gathered in the imperial city. The 5th prince's forces guarded the capital while the east, west, south, and north prince's troops were stationed at the 4 city gates. The 4 Wangye brought their personal guards and rushed to the imperial palace. The entire Yi country was waiting to see who would become the true emperor of Yi country. Yi Hao rode on the purple Ming flying horse and followed behind Prince Nan. Suddenly, a beggar attracted his attention. Qin Bing, isn't this the son of General Qin? Why is he here? Yi Hao quietly turned his horse around and walked to Qin Bing. However, Qin Bing was expressionless and his eyes were lifeless. It was as if he didn't see him at all. Qin Bing. Yi Hao called out tentatively. When Qin Bing heard Yi Hao's voice, his body trembled. He looked at Yi Hao coldly. When he realized that he didn't know him, he quickly got up and left. Yi Hao quickly chased after him. Qin Bing frowned and quickened his steps. When he reached an alley, he realized that Yi Hao was no longer behind him. He heaved a sigh of relief. How did you become like this? Yi Hao removed his disguise and stood behind Qin Bing. He was puzzled. Ooh. Qin Bing took out a dagger from his sleeve and fiercely stabbed behind him. Yi Hao easily took the dagger from Qin Bing's hand and asked in surprise, "How did your cultivation disappear?" Only then did Yi Hao realize that Qin Bing's cultivation had completely disappeared and he had become an ordinary person. Upon closer inspection, he realized that Qin Bing's dantian had been destroyed. 18th Prince? Qin Bing looked at Yi Hao in disbelief. His eyes were filled with tears. 18th Prince, is that really you? You're finally back. Yi Hao took out his identity token from his space and passed it to Qin Bing. He hurriedly asked, "It's me, I'm back. Where is General Qin? And why are you dressed like this?" When Qin Mo saw Yi Hao's token, he knew that Yi Hao really came back. He said sadly, "My father was killed by the other princes. I'm the only one left in the Qin family of more than 300 people. I'm not called Qin Bing anymore. I'm just a piece of trash. I don't deserve a name, what?" Yi Hao turned pale with fright. Why would they do that? Because of the Imperial Jade Seal. Qin Bing said with a hateful tone, "I wish I could smash it, but my father would have died 100 times. The lives of more than 20,000 soldiers would have been sacrificed in vain. If it weren't for it, I wouldn't want to live anymore." Qin Bing said bitterly. He could imagine the torment he had to endure every day for the past year. He only hoped that he could personally hand the Imperial Jade Seal to Yi Hao. He longed day and night to live a half-human, half-ghost life. Finally, Yi Hao arrived. The Imperial Jade Seal was the symbol of imperial power. The Imperial Jade Seal could store the fate of a country. The Imperial Jade Seal was made of a special material. It was equivalent to a spiritual weapon. Moreover, it was a spiritual weapon that could be upgraded. At the highest level, it could become a divine weapon. If one could control the divine-level Imperial Jade Seal, they could easily take away the fate of any of their people. However, the material used to make the Imperial Jade Seal was special. Every piece of material was ownerless. But once it was recognized by someone, the Imperial Jade Seal could only be passed down by that bloodline. In the hands of others, it was just an ordinary stone. If that bloodline disappeared, the Imperial Jade Seal would disappear into the void and randomly appear in any corner of the world until it was recognized by someone again. Thinking about it this way, it turned out that on the day Yi Batian set out, he had requested Qin Mo to hand the Imperial Jade Seal to Yi Hao if anything happened to him. On the surface, the 5 princes attacked Qin Mo to eliminate the rebels. Secretly, they wanted to snatch the Imperial Jade Seal. But they didn't expect that they couldn't find the Imperial Jade Seal. They flew into a rage out of humiliation and slaughtered the Qin family. But under Qin Mo's protection, Qin Bing escaped. This was also why so many snobs wanted to support a prince to ascend the throne. It was because of the Imperial Jade Seal. Supporting a puppet emperor was much better than destroying a country. Then say that the Imperial Jade Seal in the 5th prince's hands is fake. Yi Hao suddenly thought of a possibility. The real Imperial Jade Seal was in Qin Bing's hands. But the 5th prince claimed that he had the Imperial Jade Seal. No wonder he agreed with the other princes to fight for the throne. It turned out that the princes knew what was going on, but they were all deceiving themselves. Yi Hao heaved a sigh of relief. Originally, he felt sorry for Yi Batian when he fought for the throne. But with the Imperial Jade Seal given to him by Yi Batian, he naturally felt at ease. If he didn't obtain the throne, he would have let down his own father. Thank you for your hard work. If you obtain the throne, I will help the Qin family prove it. The Qin family is the most loyal subject of the Yi family. Yi Hao helped Qin Bing up and promised. For the sake of a promise, the Qin family only had Qin Bing left. Yi Hao was very touched. Thank you, Your Highness. This is my father's greatest wish. Qin Bing knelt on the ground again. The accusation of the Qin family was something he couldn't accept. Now that he had Yi Hao's promise, everything was worth it. Your Highness, I will bring you to find the Imperial Jade Seal now. Qin Bing brought Yi Hao to the former Qin family residence. At this time, the Qin family residence had been sealed. Yi Hao was very curious. Could the Imperial Jade Seal be here? As expected, Qin Bing brought Yi Hao to a small path. Then, the two of them climbed over the wall. Yi Hao followed behind Qin Bing. Yi Hao suddenly stopped. Black lines appeared on his forehead. You can't have hidden the Imperial Jade Seal here, right? Yi Hao looked at the latrine in front of him in shock. Qin Bing touched his nose embarrassedly. I always hid things here when I was young. Your Highness, it is very safe here. Yi Hao smiled bitterly and nodded. How could it not be safe here? Who would have thought that Qin Bing was in the capital of Yi? Who would have thought that the Imperial Jade Seal was in the Qin family residence? Who would have thought that the Imperial Jade Seal was hidden in the latrine? Your Highness, the latrine is dirty. Wait for me for a moment. Qin Bing persuaded him embarrassedly. Soon, Qin Bing came back with a mahogany box. There were 2 dragons playing with a pearl carved on it. There was also a lot of mud on it. Chapter 137. Your Highness, let's get out of the city. You can't be discovered. Qin Bing handed the Imperial Jade Seal to Yi Hao and said worriedly. The 5 princes were fighting for the throne in the capital. Moreover, the 5 princes were chasing after Yi Hao. If Yi Hao was discovered, it would be troublesome. Not only would he not be able to keep the Imperial Jade Seal, but he would also lose his life. Get out of the city? The 4 city gates are tightly guarded. Can we get out? Yi Hao took the Imperial Jade Seal and said softly. Qin Bing thought about it and agreed. Your Highness is right. Let's wait until it's over before we go out. Why do we have to go out? Follow me to the palace. Yi Hao did not expect Qin Bing to look down on him so much and said unhappily, Go to the palace? Your Highness, are you tired of living? Qin Bing heard Yi Hao's words and shouted in shock. However, Yi Hao had already climbed over the wall and left. Anyway, I don't have anything to cherish in this world. I'll go crazy with you this time. In Qin Bing's eyes, Yi Hao's actions were a sign of recklessness. However, he still chased after him. After Qin Bing climbed over the wall, a figure in white walked out from a corner and whispered, Your Highness is indeed not ordinary. Even I can't see through your cultivation. He took the long box from his back and stroked it gently. It's been almost a year. It's time for me to fulfill my promise. Eldest brother, I heard that Song Kong rebelled yesterday. Are you injured? The 5 princes were sitting in the palace. The second prince looked at the eldest prince and said sarcastically. The eldest prince was slightly angry. He glanced around and saw the mockery in each of the prince's eyes. However, he was powerless to refute. He looked at the 5th prince, who was sitting on the dragon throne. 5th brother, it's not appropriate for you to sit on the dragon throne at this time. That's right, 5th brother. You might be able to fool those officials with a fake jade seal, but are you trying to fool us as well? The 1st prince's change of topic was very effective. The 4th prince immediately spoke up. If I say this Imperial Jade Seal is real, then it is real. Unless you take out the real Imperial Jade Seal. Didn't 3rd brother also have a fake Imperial Edict? The 5th prince sat on the dragon throne and coldly said, We are all the same. Cut the crap. This throne is mine. The 1st prince had 3 factions behind him. He was full of confidence as he slammed the table. Big Brother's temper is getting worse. That's not good. I believe Big Brother hasn't heard about it yet, the 3rd prince said with a chuckle. The eldest prince raised his eyebrows and looked at the 3rd prince with disdain. 3rd brother, tell me, what do you think I don't know? Could it be that Yi Hao, that bastard, is back? The 3rd prince laughed. I don't know about that trash, but 2 days ago, General Yu Fei and I reached an agreement. What? The third prince's words silenced everyone. Yu Fei was someone who was on the same level as Ranmin. How could Yu Fei join the third prince without saying anything? Looking at the third prince's expression, it didn't seem like it was fake. And here I thought it was something big. General Su had already reached an agreement with me half a month ago. The second prince didn't expect that the third prince would also be able to rope in a powerful ally. Originally, he wanted to hide it, but now he couldn't hide it anymore. The fourth prince's position had become awkward. Everyone else had managed to rope in powerful allies, but he was the only one who didn't. His chances of fighting for the throne were very slim, and he was not willing to accept it. If he couldn't get the throne of the country of Yi, then he could be abandoned by his ally at any time. Roar! A dragon's roar came from the sky, and the doors and windows of the palace were instantly shattered. The princes covered their ears in pain. What's that sound? The princes had never heard of a dragon's roar before. Could it be that some powerful demonic beast has broken into the capital of the country of Yi? It looks like a dragon. Through the shattered doors and windows, the princes saw the gigantic creature in the sky and said in shock, a dragon was a sacred beast, and the princes could tell a glance. I am a young Emperor Xiaoyao. Why is no one coming out to welcome me? A faint voice came from the dragon. The princes looked at each other and immediately ran to the entrance of the palace. We pay our respects to young Emperor Xiaoyao. I wonder what brings young Emperor Xiaoyao to our country of Yi. Although they didn't know who was riding on the dragon, just this dragon alone was enough for them to kneel down and lick their boots. The third prince quickly said with a respectful tone. This made the other princes very unhappy. They thought that the third prince was stealing this rare opportunity. To be able to ride on a dragon, one could only imagine the power behind him. Standing on the dragon was naturally Yi Hao and Qin Bing. Qin Bing looked down at the princes who were like ants, and his heart was filled with contempt and thick killing intent. He was also shocked. Where has the 18th prince been for the past half a year? Could it be that he went to steal the dragon's egg? Riding on a dragon was something he didn't even dare to think about. He didn't expect that he would really do it, and it was because of this prince who was younger than him. Bear with it. We have to play with them. It's not fun to seize the throne so easily. Yi Hao stood beside Qin Bing and comforted him when he felt the killing intent coming from Qin Bing. Yi Hao also wanted to enter the palace directly, but he realized that it was too boring. He might as well summon the dragon. Before Qin Bing could react, he pulled Qin Bing onto the dragon and gave him a disguise pill. My young master is out to play and pass by this place. He wants to take a rest. Why? Am I not welcome? Under Yi Hao's instructions, Qin Bing suppressed the anger in his heart and said, I don't dare. Young Emperor Xiaoyao, please come down and talk. The princes were afraid that the person on the dragon would be unhappy and kill them instantly. If that happened, they wouldn't even have a place to cry. Yi Hao let the dragon land on the ground and walked to the palace alone. The princes and Qin Bing quickly followed. Under the dragon's gaze, the group of palace guards didn't even dare to fart. Some even wet their pants. Can I sit on this chair? Yi Hao sat on the dragon chair and looked down at the princes. His tone was firm. The princes looked at Yi Hao's contemptuous eyes and didn't dare to show any displeasure. They didn't dare to provoke Yi Hao. They all bowed and almost knelt down. This was because the dragon's aura was suppressing the princes. This young emperor still remembers the dance that the emperor performed for me in the Great Sun Dynasty. The few of you dance for me. If he didn't play with his brothers, he would be letting them down. They had been looking for him for more than a year. Chapter 138. Even the emperor of the Great Sun Empire danced for him personally. This made the princes even more certain that Yi Hao's identity wasn't ordinary. However, when they heard that he wanted them to dance as well, their faces darkened. As princes, they had their own dignity. Why aren't you willing? Yi Hao was displeased when he saw that the princes didn't give him face. His voice turned cold. The huge dragon roared in cooperation, shocking the princes. Let's dance. The third prince was the most sinister. Otherwise, he wouldn't have kept so many tricks up his sleeves. In order to please this young man riding on the dragon, What was the point of dancing? Even the emperor of the great Sun Empire could dance. Why couldn't he? I'll remember the humiliation you gave me. The third prince had a respectful smile on his face. His movements were very uncoordinated. He started to imitate the dancers and swore in his heart. Not bad. Twist your buttocks. Yi Hao chuckled softly and continued to give instructions. When Qin Bing saw this, he wanted to vent his anger. He wanted to laugh, but couldn't. He could only suppress his laughter and stand beside Yi Hao. When the other princes saw that the third prince was going all out with his comical dance, they couldn't laugh. They just stood there in a daze. I'll reward whoever dances better, Yi Hao said when he saw that the others were hesitating. As for the reward, Yi Hao didn't mention it. The fourth prince was tempted. He was the weakest among them. Since his third brother was going all out, he couldn't do anything. The reward wasn't important. The most important thing was to be appreciated by the young man in front of him. At the thought of this, the fourth prince didn't hesitate anymore. He shook his buttocks and started to twist. His dance moves were enough to sweep away square dancing anties. Not bad, Yi Hao said softly. After receiving Yi Hao's praise, the two princes worked even harder. Yi Hao glanced at the remaining three princes. He stopped smiling and asked with squinted eyes, "Why? Are you guys not giving me face?" Yi Hao's eyes were filled with murderous intent, causing the hearts of the three princes to tremble violently. The dragon might of the giant dragon pressed down on them even more intensely, completely shattering the arrogance in their hearts. Slowly, the three princes started to twist their buttocks. However, the smiles on their faces were uglier than crying. At this moment, they finally understood the psychology of the dancers forcing smiles. The one in the dragon robe, "Raise your neck higher. You twist your waist." Yi Hao half reclined on the dragon throne and kept giving pointers to the five princes. His heart was already blooming with joy. If they knew his true identity, he wondered if they would still dance so enthusiastically. All right, let's stop. After watching for more than an hour, Yi Hao lost interest and waved his hand. The princes were relieved. They even wanted to cry. Fortunately, there were no eunuchs or palace maids here. Otherwise, they would have lost all their face. Yi Hao took out 5 spiritual swords from the space and gave them to the 5 princes. These 5 swords are the titanium sword, grand sword, chase sword, chivalrous sword, and scar sword. Pick them yourselves. They are all level 2 spiritual weapons. Yi Hao threw the 5 spiritual weapons on the ground like they were trash. He wanted to see if his brothers wanted them. The 5 princes looked at the 5 level 2 spiritual weapons on the ground. They all wanted to take them for themselves. These were rare treasures. Among their current weapons, only the 5th prince and the 2nd prince had a level 1 spiritual weapon. Some of the princes were backed by the marquis. They didn't even have enough spiritual weapons. How could they be willing to give them to them? Now that the level 2 spiritual weapons were in front of them, they were like hot potatoes. It was really difficult to take them. Being forced to dance by Yi Hao was already embarrassing enough. If they were to take these swords again, they would not be able to accept the names of the swords. However, these were level 2 spiritual artifacts. Don't you want to be cheap? Yi Hao deliberately emphasized the word cheap. If you don't want it, I'll throw it to the dragon to fill its teeth. Throw it to the dragon to fill its teeth. These were spiritual weapons. Even the kingdom of Yi couldn't take out a single treasure. You might not be afraid of the dragon, but judging from Yi Hao's attitude, he might really do it. The 5 princes made up their minds. They had already danced. It was just a sword's name. Why should they care so much? Young Emperor, we want it, the 5 princes said through gritted teeth. What do you want? Yi Hao narrowed his eyes and asked with a chuckle. We want the sword. The 5 princes didn't care anymore. There was no one else here. If they wanted to lose face, they would lose face. No one else would know. They were willing to risk it all for the spiritual weapons. Since you want to be cheap, pick your own cheap weapons, Yi Hao said as he pointed at the 5 weapons on the ground. Why are you gathering so many troops outside the city? Are you going to war? After teasing his princes, Yi Hao finally talked about something important. But he couldn't show that he knew everything. He hadn't had enough fun yet. He wanted to let these princes have a taste of their dreams of becoming emperors. Young emperor, you might not know this. We're choosing a new emperor, the third prince said as he seized the opportunity again. Is there a need to choose an emperor? Didn't your old emperor leave a will? Yi Hao pretended not to understand and continued to ask. Young emperor, you must be joking. Our father met with an accident and didn't leave a will. Choosing an emperor. Interesting. I haven't tried it before. It must be interesting. Yi Hao snorted in his heart. These princes were heartless. If he hadn't known, he would have thought that his father was dead. Hearing Yi Hao's words, the princes wanted to cry, but no tears came out. What was the most important thing to them was just a game in Yi Hao's mouth. But when they thought of him riding a giant dragon and the emperor dancing for him, they felt relieved. Moreover, if Yi Hao could help them choose an emperor, their positions would be more secure and no one would dare to go against them. It would be best if they could get on the good side of this young emperor. Yi Hao already knew the forces behind the 5 princes. They had already arrived in the capital, but had yet to enter the palace. Yi Hao wanted to tell them personally that the country of Yi wasn't a place that anyone could touch. Moreover, Yi Hao believed that those forces had more or less received the news of him riding a dragon into the palace. To Yi Hao's surprise, he heard from Qin Bing. His fiancée had also come to the capital. She sent a messenger to the country of Yi to break off the engagement, but was rejected by him. Now, she came to the country of Yi to join in the fun. However, Yi Hao didn't have a good impression of this fiancée of his. The reason why the country of Zhao started a war with the country of Yi was mostly his fiancée's idea. It was because she despised him. But since she's here, let's have some fun. Yi Hao had already thought of how to slap Zhao Yunhan's face, but also depended on her. Whether he could succeed in slapping Zhao Yunhan's face would depend on what kind of person she was. If she was strong-willed, there was nothing he could do. Chapter 139. Young Emperor Xiao Yao. I wonder if we have the honor of inviting you to be our witness? The 5 princes asked in unison after making up their minds. Sure, when do we start? Yi Hao said softly, looking a little impatient. Young Emperor, please wait for a moment. We'll start right away. Seeing Yi Hao's displeased expression, the 5th prince hurriedly said, Young Emperor, should we go to the arena now? The 5th prince asked cautiously when he saw Yi Hao sitting on the throne motionlessly. Yi Hao squinted his eyes and looked at the 5th prince who had a low attitude. He said unhappily, Why should we go to the arena? Let's do it in the palace. I think it's good here. I'm too lazy to move anyway. The princes looked at each other and then looked at Yi Hao who was sitting on the throne. They could only agree because no one wanted to offend this mysterious young emperor. They were all thinking of how to curry favor with Yi Hao. It's just a venue. Let's change it. Soon, the princes sent their subordinates to inform all the civil and military officials, as well as the snobs behind them, to change the location. As soon as the news came out, it caused an uproar. How could the venue be decided so easily? What was even more interesting was the identity of the young emperor riding the dragon. Anyone who could ride a dragon was at the top of the 10,000 Kingdoms continent. How could he appear in such a small place? Could there be a powerful secret in Yi? Otherwise, why would the emperor be kidnapped and a young man riding on a dragon appear at the crucial moment of the battle for the throne? Have you investigated thoroughly? Zhao Yunhan stood in front of the window and looked in the direction of the palace. The roar just now came from that direction. The guard quickly said, 9th princess, according to the spies in the palace, a mysterious young man entered the palace because of the dragon's roar. Dragon? Mysterious young man? Zhao Yunhan's calm expression changed slightly. Who could it be? And we just received news that the location of the battle for the throne has changed from the arena to the palace. The guard continued while observing the princess's expression. No matter what, the engagement should have been annulled long ago. That fool disappeared for a year. I can't be a widow for him for the rest of my life. Zhao Yunhan's purpose in coming to the country of Yi was to announce the annulment of her engagement with Yi Hao during the fight for the throne. She believed that without Yi Batian around, no one in the kingdom of Yi would dare to stop her. Her other goal was to prevent the eldest prince from seizing the throne. Although the Zhao country and the Qian country were working together on the surface, that was just a stalling tactic. If the first prince obtained a throne and joined the Qian country, the Zhao country would have nothing to do with it. Sister Han, are you ready? We should enter the palace. The ninth prince's voice sounded from outside the door. His voice was very amiable and fawning. Hearing this voice, Zhao Yunhan's eyes flashed with a trace of disgust. She signaled the guard to not speak. Her expression changed, and she said sweetly, "Ninth Prince Han stomach hurts a little. You go first, I'll go find you immediately." The ninth prince immediately raised his voice and said with heartache, "Sister Han, are you all right? Why don't I accompany you to the palace to find the imperial physician?" Zhao Yunhan's purpose was to send the ninth prince away. How could she agree? She continued, "I'm fine. I'll be fine after some rest." "All right then. If anything happens to Sister Han, you must send someone to inform me." The ninth prince didn't insist and left with a group of guards. After the ninth prince left, the guard asked in confusion, "Princess, didn't His Majesty ask you to get closer to the ninth prince?" "Why? Idiot! How can a prince of a marquisate country compare to a mysterious young man riding a dragon?" Zhao Yunhan raised her eyebrows and scolded coldly. "Get out first. I'll go out after I tidy up." Zhao Yunhan was prepared to use her trump card to attract this young man riding a dragon. She didn't believe that there was a man in this world who wasn't lustful, let alone a budding young girl like her. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to coax the ninth prince. In her life, there was only one insult, and that was that her fiancé was an idiot. Although he later said that he had changed for the better, who knew if it was true or not. Although this engagement was dispensable, she wanted to prove it with her own eyes. Only she could decide on her own engagement. No one else could decide. Zhao Yunhan began to change her skirt and put on a crystal dress. Her charm immediately increased. After half an hour of tidying up, she finally finished dressing up. She stared at the beautiful girl in the bronze mirror and smiled sweetly. However, the sinister and treacherous look in her eyes destroyed the atmosphere. "Pull up a screen for me here. I don't want to be watched by so many people," Yi Hao said to the fifth prince. The fifth prince only thought that this was Yi Hao's quirk and didn't suspect anything. He immediately ordered people to bring out a few screens so that people couldn't see the scene on the dragon throne. Taking advantage of the fact that there was no one in the main hall, Yi Hao secretly slipped out of the main hall and left Qin Bing behind the screen. He placed the dragon prison lake on the huge dragon's body and returned to the dragon throne. Not long after, many ministers arrived at the main hall. However, when they saw the huge dragon outside the main hall, they lowered their heads and fearfully walked into the main hall. However, when they saw that the dragon throne was blocked by the screen, they were all very puzzled. However, no one dared to say anything. When everyone had arrived, Yi Hao softly said, "Let's begin." The fifth prince was about to speak when suddenly, Li Hong's prime minister unhappily stood up and loudly reprimanded, "Wait a moment, princes. I want to know who is sitting on the dragon throne. What qualifications does he have to sit on my country's dragon throne?" "Fifth prince, the reason you sat on the dragon throne was because of His Majesty's decree to let you be a regent. Now, you let an outsider sit on my country's dragon throne. I don't think it's appropriate," Li Hong said righteously, as if he didn't care about the huge dragon outside at all. Li Hong's words made the princes sweat profusely. They were afraid that they would anger young Emperor Xiaoyao. The fourth prince frowned and coldly said, "How dare you, Li Hong? Aren't you afraid of angering the young emperor? You should know your place. You're just a minister. How dare you criticize us? I think you're tired of living." "Young emperor? I want to know which country's young emperor is he from? You guys are greedy and afraid of death, but I, Li Hong, am not. Otherwise, I would be letting down the previous emperor," Li Hong said without a care. His sharp eyes made the princes not dare to look directly at him. "Oh, this lord is so heroic." Yi Hao didn't expect Yi Hao to have such a loyal and righteous person. Yi Hao didn't disappoint him completely. However, he still asked in a mocking tone, "Are you really not afraid of death? My huge dragon hasn't eaten meat for a few days." Yi Hao's tone now was completely like a spoiled brat. Many of the ministers who were hostile to Li Hong revealed mocking expressions. Chapter 140. The faces of the ministers changed slightly. They didn't expect that this topic would involve them. If they made the wrong choice, they would face a bottomless abyss. On one hand, it was for the dignity of the Yi country. This was the best time to prove one's backbone. On the other hand, it was a mysterious youth. If they weren't careful, they would offend the princes and might even be eaten by the dragon. As for Guan Jindong of the Nine Heavens, the ninth prince of the Qian country, a few people from different powers sat at the side. No one wanted to get involved in this mess. At the same time, they were worried about the Yi country. Would it be out of their control? More importantly, he had to figure out who this mysterious young man was. If he was really someone from a powerful power, they had to investigate why he would come to such a small place. Everyone in the imperial court was calculating their own thoughts. I also don't agree with you sitting on the dragon throne of the Yi country. An official standing at the back of the imperial court suddenly stood out and said. Everyone looked at that official. To be able to stand at the back of the imperial court, his status was needless to say. Many people had ridicule in their eyes. Even Li Hong was a little surprised. He didn't expect that there would be someone who shared the same ideals as him in the imperial court. Although this person's status was a little low, his spirit far surpassed everyone in the imperial court. It was a pity that such a good talent might be accompanying him in death. Zhou, who do you think you are? This is not the place for you to speak. The fifth prince said disdainfully. This Zhou wanted to rely on Yi Hao, so the fifth prince naturally suppressed him in the imperial court. If this Zhou didn't jump out, he would have almost forgotten about him. He didn't expect that at this crucial moment, he would still seek death. Hearing this name, Yi Hao immediately recalled that this Zhou was the one who wanted to rely on him in the Yanwang Tower. It seemed that in the year that he wasn't around, he didn't do well in the imperial court. However, this spirit of his was pretty good. Even if you think it's inappropriate, what can you do to me? They thought that Yi Hao would fly into a rage and kill the two of them. They didn't expect this mysterious youth to say such words. Could it be that this mysterious youth was very kind? Li Hong pointed at the screen angrily. You're unreasonable. He turned around and was about to leave. Did I allow you to leave? Yi Hao pretended to be angry and shouted as he slapped the dragon throne. His performance hadn't been completed yet, so how could anyone leave? Moreover, Li Hong was one of the few loyal officials, so he couldn't let Li Hong take over. As the left prime minister, Li Hong's status was self-evident. Seeing Li Hong stop before Li Hong could say anything, he said, "Please give this lord a seat." Today, if anyone wants to leave without my permission, they're 9 generations. Yi Hao's threat was self-evident. Li Hong was furious, but when he thought of his family, he couldn't bring disaster to his family because of a moment of impulse. Since ancient times, loyalty and filial piety couldn't be achieved at the same time. He didn't do a good job as a minister, but he could not be a good family head. Li Hong shook off the soldier's hands and howled into the sky. Yi is finished. Where are you, late emperor? I'm so sorry. Li Hong sat down on the chair in a daze. Zhao's 9th princess has arrived. As soon as the soldier outside shouted, Zhao Yunhan walked into the palace with a bright smile on her face. People couldn't help but take a second look at her, especially the clothes on her body, which made people's imagination run wild. Sister Han, come and sit here. The 9th prince of Qian country swallowed his saliva when he saw Zhao Yunhan in a daze and quickly waved his hand. Zhao Yunhan looked at him coldly and ignored him. She walked straight to the screen and said shyly, I'm Zhao Yunhan. Greetings to the young emperor. The 9th prince of Qian country was stunned. He didn't expect this to happen. Didn't Zhao Yunhan personally say that she would marry him? Didn't she say that he was the person she loved the most? Why was she ignoring him now? Yi Hao looked at Zhao Yunhan and said frivolously, This lady is quite good-looking. Raise your head and let me have a look. Just as he had expected, his fiancée had actually seduced a man she didn't know in public. Although the man was himself, Yi Hao was still very unhappy in his heart. I can't believe you're so greedy and scheming. You're the one who sent yourself to me. Don't blame me. Yi Hao shook his head and smiled bitterly. Hearing Yi Hao's words, Zhao Yunhan smiled proudly in her heart. She thought that her outfit was right. She immediately smiled and pretended to raise her head in embarrassment. Seeing this, the ninth prince was furious. He immediately scolded without caring about his reputation. Zhao Yunhan, you bitch, what is the meaning of this? Who is this person? How dare he shout in front of me? Zhao Yunhan's expression changed. She didn't expect the ninth prince to be so shameless. Just as she was about to speak, Yi Hao's disdainful voice came from behind the screen. Zhao Yunhan's heart was even more flustered. She was afraid that the ninth prince would say something that would affect her image in Qianguo's heart. If that happened, all her efforts would be in vain. Not only would she fail to please the mysterious young emperor, but her relationship with Qianguo would also worsen. Zhao Yunhan lowered her head and thought quickly. As long as she had this so-called young emperor, she wouldn't have to worry about the ninth prince. At that time, she could abandon the ninth prince as a chess piece. Hearing Yi Hao's voice, the ninth prince couldn't take it anymore. When had he ever been humiliated like this? Moreover, if he continued to tolerate it, his woman would be taken away. His years of pursuit would go down the drain. I'm your grandfather. Stop pretending to be mysterious. Go to hell. Before the people from a Qian country could stop him, the ninth prince rushed behind the screen with his sword. Young emperor, be careful. Your highness, be careful. Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect this to happen. Everyone thought that the ninth prince of the Qian country was an idiot. He wasn't anxious at all. However, only the people from the Qian country knew that the ninth prince was deeply in love with Zhao Yunhan. In order to make Zhao Yunhan happy, the ninth prince gave up his throne and ran to the Zhao country. He was wholeheartedly in love with Zhao Yunhan. How could he accept the fact that Zhao Yunhan had been playing with him all this time and suddenly wanted to throw herself into someone else's arms? Trash! Yi Hao shouted angrily. The ninth prince had just reached behind the screen. Before he could see Yi Hao clearly, he felt a gust of wind in front of him. His chest was hit by a mountain, and he was sent flying. The ninth prince fell onto the table, and the wine and dishes spilled all over the floor. The ninth prince spat out a mouthful of blood, and he lay on the ground, unable to get up. I don't want this. Kill him for me. Quickly kill him. The ninth prince had blood in his mouth as he ordered his subordinates. However, no one dared to move. This is just a warning. Kill whoever dares to cause trouble, Yi Hao said coldly. Chapter 141. So strong. Everyone thought at the same time. Before anyone could react, the ninth prince was sent flying. There was no other expression other than shock in everyone's eyes. What's the background of this Yi country? Why would it attract such a mysterious young man? A young man sitting beside Guan Zhendong asked with a frown. According to my investigation, this Yi country doesn't have a strong background. Guan Zhendong was fat. Although he was middle-aged, he was respectful to the young man in front of him with a puzzled expression. That's strange. The Nine Heavens was a snobbish place. Guan Zhendong was only a small person in charge of the Yi country. The young man in front of him was naturally sent by the Nine Heavens to help him seize control of the Yi country. The young man's strength had reached Wu Ho's level 7. His position in the Nine Heavens was naturally not bad. He thought that he could easily help the second prince seize the throne. He didn't expect such an accident to happen. My lord, what do you think of facing this Qian country's prince? Guan Zhendong asked respectfully with a serious expression. One had to know that whether he could help the second prince seize the throne was related to his own status in the future. The young man looked at the ninth prince who was lying among the dishes in disdain and said softly, "One finger." But the young man changed the topic and glanced behind the screen. The person behind the screen is very strong. Because I secretly glanced at him just now, I couldn't see through his strength. A trace of seriousness flashed across the young man's face. Guan Zhendong also couldn't help but look at the screen. However, he couldn't see anything. He said bitterly, "Then what should we do? Should we just give up? Take one step at a time. Before we figure it out, try not to offend him. Remember, I found him with my spiritual sense just now. The other party has already warned me. Behave yourself. The young man didn't expect to be discovered, even though he was so careful. He was even more certain that the person behind the screen had a higher cultivation level than him. System, thank you. Yi Hao thanked the system in his mind. It was the system that helped him cut off the young man's spiritual sense. Yi Hao is only a level 6 martial general. With a level 4 spiritual weapon, he was invincible under Wu Hou. However, it was still difficult for him to deal with a level 7 Wu Hou. It wasn't impossible, but his spiritual sense was far from enough. However, his physical body's defense was enough to block any ordinary Wu Hou's attack. All right, this young emperor is tired. You can start choosing your emperor. Don't worry about me. Yi Hao yawned and said lazily. Naturally, no one dared to oppose Yi Hao's decision. Since the screen could be seen from the inside, the outside couldn't see inside. Therefore, no one knew that Yi Hao had already used the Dragon Prison Lake to enter the Dragon Prison Lake and left the palace. Yi Hao quickly changed his clothes and removed the disguise pill. He returned to his original appearance and walked into the main hall. Stop! Who are you? The guard saw Yi Hao coming out from behind the giant dragon. They didn't see where Yi Hao came from. They immediately shouted. The guards took out their weapons and stared at Yi Hao cautiously. I'm Yi Hao. Yi Hao took out his badge from his bosom and said with a grin. Yi Hao, 18th Prince. Yi Hao's name had been quiet for a year. But last year, Yi Hao's name had spread throughout the entire country. Now, Yi Hao's wanted posters were posted all over the country. The guards asked in shock. They compared the wanted posters and found that it was indeed similar. 18th Prince, please wait for a moment. I will go in and report. The guard didn't know what to do and said to Yi Hao embarrassedly. Yi had in mind. Go quickly. Here is my token. He handed the token to the guard. The guard took it and ran into the main hall. Reporting, the guard entered the main hall. Seeing the mess in the main hall, he didn't know who to address. He held the token in his hand and stood there in a daze. Speak. What's the matter? The 5th prince looked at the guard with dissatisfaction. The emperor hadn't been chosen yet, and the guard didn't know how to call him. When the time comes, he would teach this guard a lesson. The guard felt bitter. No matter who he called, he would offend the other princes. He said with grievance, Yi Hao is here. What? The guard's voice wasn't loud, but everyone heard it clearly. Yi Hao was very familiar to everyone. The princes chased after him for almost a year, but they didn't get any news. At this time, Yi Hao actually appeared. Yi Hao appeared at this time. Could it be that Yi Hao also wanted to fight for the throne? Could it be that Yi Hao returned with some shocking means? Everyone's mind was filled with thoughts. My lord is finally back. Zhou Di thought excitedly. Ignoring everyone's reaction, he was the first to run out of the main hall. Zhou Di stopped. Li Hong's impression of Zhou Di had greatly improved. There was a feeling of attraction between the same kind of people. Naturally, he couldn't watch Zhou Di die. The person on the dragon throne had said that without his consent, whoever dared to walk out of the hall would have to pay the price with their life. Yi Hao walked directly into the main hall. He patted Zhou Di on the shoulder and gave him a look of approval. Zhou Di immediately knelt on the ground emotionally. His eyes were filled with tears. My lord, I missed you so much. Lord Zhou, please get up. Yi Hao helped Zhou Di up. It's really Yi Hao. Everyone looked at Yi Hao. They believed the guard's words. Everyone, how have you been? Yi Hao narrowed his eyes and looked at everyone with a smile. Yi Hao, after a year, you're still in the martial warrior realm. The 5th prince glanced at Yi Hao's cultivation. As Yi Hao deliberately suppressed his cultivation, the 5th prince easily saw through Yi Hao's cultivation. The 5th prince said disdainfully, You should know that your 5th brother is already a 3rd-level martial general. Everyone recovered from their shock. When they heard the 5th prince's words, they quickly checked Yi Hao's cultivation. Just as the 5th prince had said, he was only at the peak of the martial warrior realm. If this was the Yi country of the past, the peak of the martial warrior realm would still be considered an expert. But now, which prince wasn't a martial general? My good brother, do you still remember the Imperial Dragon List competition you won last year? Now I can easily kill you with one hand. Among them, the first prince was the most talented. With the help of the elixirs given by Qianghua, he had reached the 9th level of martial general. He was one step away from the 10th level. Chapter 142. When Zhao Yunhan saw Yi Hao enter the main hall and found out that Yi Hao was still a martial artist, she looked at Yi Hao with disdain. Even the 9th prince, who had been carried to the side, was much stronger than Yi Hao, let alone the mysterious young emperor behind the screen. Zhao Yunhan stole a glance at the screen and suddenly smiled slyly. If she stood out and broke off the engagement in front of everyone, she would be the center of attention. Then she would definitely become the center of attention. If she could attract the attention of the mysterious young emperor, everything she did would be worth it. She did not like Yi Hao at all. He used to be an idiot. Although he was better now, his cultivation was still trash. How could a little snake trap a golden phoenix like her? That was simply a fool's dream. Her man had to be the true emperor. In her heart, there were many people in the main hall who were stronger than Yi Hao. Zhao Yunhan was stunned at the thought of this. She slowly walked up to Yi Hao and asked, "Are you Yi Hao? Who are you?" Yi Hao's eyebrows twitched. He looked at Zhao Yunhan, whose face was about to freeze. She was like a completely different person from before. Seeing the disgust in the corner of Zhao Yunhan's eyes, Yi Hao knew what Zhao Yunhan wanted to do. However, he had never seen Zhao Yunhan before and could only pretend to be confused. Seeing Zhao Yunhan walk over, everyone showed an understanding expression. Everyone knew that Zhao Yunhan and Yi Hao were engaged. Zhao Yunhan was even willing to throw aside the princes of the Marquisate in order to cling to the mysterious young emperor, let alone Yi Hao. In everyone's eyes, Yi Hao was just a prince in name. Without the protection of Yi Batian, Yi Hao was nothing. As for the other princes, it was already good enough that they did not kill Yi Hao. How could they help Yi Hao? They all stood at the side and watched coldly. They wanted to see Yi Hao make a fool of himself. In the eyes of the crowd, the drama of a woman divorcing her husband was about to begin. If a man was divorced by a woman, he would have no feelings left to live in this world. At that time, Yi Hao's reputation would become famous again, and he would become a disgrace to all men. Zhao Yunhan said coldly with disgust in her eyes. She didn't want to say another word to Yi Hao. "Oh, so you're my fiancé." Yi Hao showed an expression of sudden realization, and there was a hint of joy on his face. "She looks pretty good. Why are you in such a hurry to marry me?" "But I'm not ready yet." Yi Hao didn't wait for Zhao Yunhan to respond and continued with a conflicted expression. "If you're really in a hurry, I can consider it." Wow. Yi Hao's words caused a wave of laughter. This brat didn't even look at his own status. Even now, he was still dreaming here. Could it be that he couldn't see the strong disgust in Yi Hao's eyes? Still thinking about it? Why don't you just die? Stop dreaming. You're not worthy of me, Zhao Yunhan said coldly, not giving Yi Hao any face. Zhao Yunhan looked at Yi Hao as if she was looking at trash. She just stared at Yi Hao quietly, wanted to see the change in his expression. But after waiting for a long time, Yi Hao was still smiling. Aren't you sad?" Zhao Yunhan was a little curious. She couldn't accept Yi Hao's attitude. According to her thoughts, shouldn't Yi Hao reject her? Or should he do the same as the 9th prince, and then slap his face ruthlessly and let him know that she was unattainable and not someone a useless prince like him could touch? "Princess Zhao, isn't it a little inappropriate for you to talk about this here?" Li Hong couldn't stand it anymore. Zhao Yunhan's actions made Yi Country lose face. Although he was already sad for Yi Country, he couldn't just sit by and do nothing. This matter was decided by your imperial father and our late emperor. If anyone wants to reject it, it should be your imperial father. Zhao Yunhan sneered. "I'm representing my imperial father's wishes. Do you think the current Yi Country is still the same Yi Country as before?" This, Zhao Yunhan's words caused Li Hong's expression to change. Right now, the biggest problem in the Yi Country was that there wasn't a single prince who could shoulder the burden. All the princes only wanted to curry favor with those in power and gain the support of others. Didn't they know that even if they were to become a prince, they would only be a puppet of others? He could ignore it in the future, But now that Yi country's prince's engagement was rejected, he couldn't just sit by and do nothing. He sighed. Consider it as the last thing I do for Yi country. It's time for me to retire. Li Hong bowed to Yi Hao and said, Your Highness, I have the intention to betroth my daughter to your Highness. I only hope that she can become your Highness's official wife. What? Lord Li is too willing to go all out. He's even willing to give up his own daughter. Lord Li's heart for Yi country can be seen by the sun and moon. This Li Hong is crazy. Marrying his own daughter to a piece of trash, I really don't know what he's thinking. When the crowd heard Li Hong's words, they all revealed a shocked expression. Some praised, some disdained. However, Li Hong's decision was the only one that could solve the current problem. Back then, Yi Hao and Zhao Yunhan were engaged, but it wasn't explicitly stated. Zhao Yunhan was the concubine after all. Li Hong's decision was to prove that Zhao Yunhan was just a concubine. Her status was self-evident. It was wishful thinking for her to divorce her husband. Zhao Yunhan was so angry that she couldn't speak. She wanted to raise her hand and point at Li Hong, but she helplessly put it down and clenched her fist tightly. Lord Li, this is too reckless, Yi Hao said awkwardly. Although he was acting now, he didn't expect Li Hong to go all out. Everyone knew that he had the lowest status now, but he still dared to betroth his daughter to him. This old man has decided. Li Hong glanced at Yi Hao. This old man hasn't even despised you yet, but you're still making excuses. If it wasn't for Yi country, would this old man betroth his daughter to you? Ugh, Yi Hao was speechless. He didn't know how to open his mouth. Zhao Yunhan's eyes moved. She thought that since Li Hong was so generous to betroth his daughter to someone else, his daughter's appearance wouldn't be too good. Moreover, if Li Hong's daughter was also invited to the imperial court, it would be even better if Li Hong's daughter cried, made a fuss, and threatened to hang herself. As for who would be Yi Hao's wife, it all depended on Yi Hao. She was quite confident in her appearance. When the time came, as long as she became Yi Hao's wife, she would be able to divorce Yi Hao legitimately. Chapter 143. I'm here. Just as Li Hong was hesitating, a girl walked in from outside. She was dressed in white, and her voice was crisp and moving. You Luo, you didn't listen to your father again. Did you take my token again? Li Hong said reproachfully. Li Ura often went to the palace, and every time, she would steal his identity token. If it was any other time, it would be fine. However, at such a critical moment, he could not even keep his position. He was afraid that Li Ura would be in danger. Who could have asked you not to bring me here? Do you think that I won't be able to find the token if you hide it? Li Ura stuck out her little tongue cutely. Li Hong smiled and shook his head. He really did not know what to do with his daughter. Brother Yi Hao, this is the third time we've met. Did you bring a gift for Luo? Li Ura suddenly grabbed Yi Hao's arm intimately and said with a smile. She whispered in front of Yi Hao, I'm helping you. Li Ura saw Zhao Yunhan's behavior just now. She did not like Zhao Yunhan and did not want to make things difficult for her father. That was why she walked out. Yi Hao saw Li Ura grabbing his shoulder intimately and could not help but think of ZMO. That girl, I wonder if she finished her lollipop. However, when he lowered his head and looked at Li Ura, this little girl had become more and more beautiful this year. She was not inferior to Zhao Yunhan at all. She was also a little beauty. He could not help but think of the embarrassing incident a year ago. At that time, he was mistaken as a little eunuch who stole things. Li Ura saw that Yi Hao did not speak and instead lowered his head. She also thought of the incident a year ago, and her little face instantly turned red. Could it be that they know each other? Li Hong saw how intimate his daughter and Yi Hao were. However, when he thought about how his daughter often went to the palace in the past, it was normal for them to know each other. He did not think much of it. So beautiful. Zhao Yunhan thought from the bottom of his heart. He never thought that Li Hong would be willing to marry such a good daughter to a trash. But his engagement had to be annulled. He said, Little sister, don't be deceived by someone's flowery words. You're still young, but your father wants to betroth you to him. Don't you have any objections? Li Yura held Yi Hao's arm and looked at Zhao Yunhan. She scanned Zhao Yunhan's chest and said, "Is it small? It seems like mine is bigger than yours." Li Yura said softly with a puzzled expression. Yi Hao held back the laughter in his heart. He didn't expect Li Yura's words to be so sharp. In an instant, Zhao Yunhan, who wanted to suppress her, was speechless. Enough. Yi Hao stared at Zhao Yunhan. "Do you really want to break off the engagement? You don't regret it?" "I regret it. You think too highly of yourself." Zhao Yunhan felt uncomfortable being stared at by Yi Hao. But when she thought of Yi Hao's cultivation, she immediately regained her composure and said disdainfully, "All right, then I'll divorce you today." Yi Hao said and didn't look at Zhao Yunhan anymore. Zhao Yunhan was so angry that her lungs were about to explode. How could she divorce a trash? If word got out, where would her reputation go? Moreover, there was a mysterious young emperor sitting on top of her. Her face was filled with anger. "Divorce me? What right do you have to divorce me? Do you know that my body constitution is a high-grade martial body? My future is limitless." But you... Yi Hao was slightly surprised. He didn't expect Zhao Yunhan to be so talented. But compared to his innate, sacred martial spirit body, which only appeared once in 10,000 years, she couldn't be more useless. Now Yi Hao understood why Zhao Yunhan wanted to break off the engagement. She wanted to curry favor with others. She wanted to use other people's resources to cultivate. A high-grade martial body was considered a genius. But without good cultivation techniques and resources, it would be a waste. Even if Zhao Yunhan was a princess, Zhao country was just a duchy. What resources could they take out to nurture her? But this kind of woman was too scary. Because she was too scheming, she only had herself in her eyes. Everyone else was just her chess pieces or stepping stones. But it was because of this that she became so arrogant. She could break off the engagement, but he definitely couldn't. "So what if you have a high-grade martial body? I want to divorce you today," Yi Hao said softly without looking at Zhao Yunhan. Zhao Yunhan was angry and pointed angrily at Yi Hao. However, Yi Hao didn't even look at her. If this was Zhao country, she would have torn Yi Hao into pieces. However, she suddenly thought of Yi Hao's identity. Even if she didn't argue with him, the princes of Yi country wouldn't let Yi Hao off. Thinking of this, Zhao Yunhan immediately gave the second prince a look. The second prince also instantly understood. In fact, he was also moved by Zhao Yunhan. However, Zhao Yunhan didn't like him. Zhao Yunhan's high-grade martial body made him feel even more despair. He didn't even have a low-grade martial body. However, if he could win the smile of a beauty, it was all worth it. "Yi Hao, where have you been hiding for the past year? It's really been hard for us to find you." The second prince was still thinking about how Yi Hao had cheated him of a few million taels of gold a year ago. This made him so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. If one were to ask who had worked the hardest to find Yi Hao, the second prince would be ranked first, especially after Yi Batian had been kidnapped. There was not a moment when he didn't think of capturing Yi Hao and cutting Yi Hao into pieces. He never thought that Yi Hao would actually deliver himself to him. Furthermore, his cultivation hadn't increased at all, and he didn't have a single subordinate. Even so, he still dared to enter the palace alone. He couldn't help but admire Yi Hao's luck. It turned out that there were people in this world who were courting death. The second prince sneered, "You can't be thinking of fighting for the throne, right? Don't worry about where I went. Look at what this is." Yi Hao took out something wrapped in yellow cloth from his bosom, attracting everyone's attention. The second prince was so frightened that he took a step back, afraid that Yi Hao was holding some kind of hidden weapon. Yi Hao untied the yellow cloth, revealing the shape of the imperial seal. However, there was a huge python coiled around it. The imperial seals in the Myriad Kingdom continent would change according to the level of the country. The lowest level imperial seal would be a python. The higher level imperial seal would be a flood dragon. The higher level imperial seal would be a dragon. The higher level imperial seal would be 2 dragons. As for the imperial jade seal in Yi Hao's hand, it was the lowest grade imperial jade seal. Not only that, the color of the python engraved on the imperial jade seal was much fainter. This meant that the fate of the Yi country was about to dissipate completely. When the fate of the country completely dissipated, the imperial jade seal would also vanish. The imperial seal of the country. Those who were still sitting all stood up. Everyone no longer looked down on them. Many people looked at the princes with doubtful gazes. Everyone thought that the imperial jade seal was in the hands of the fifth prince. But in reality, it was all an act by the other princes. They knew that the imperial jade seal was more important than them. If they knew that the imperial jade seal was lost, the powers behind them would surely abandon them. Why is the imperial seal with you? Chapter 144. So what if you have the imperial jade seal? The third prince finally stood up with a smile. I have an imperial edict. Who knows if you stole the seal? Therefore, the people behind the prince knew that they had been tricked. However, they couldn't do anything at this critical moment. The third prince's words proved that the seal in Yi Hao's hands was real. At this time, a white figure rushed into the hall. Third prince, can you show me the imperial edict you mentioned? Nangong Wentian. The person who came was the Nangong Wentian who had disappeared for more than a year. The Nangong Wentian had his hands behind his back. He also held a yellow cloth in his hand and walked towards the third prince with a smile. Your Highness, the Nangong Wentian walked past Yi Hao and only bowed to Yi Hao. The third prince panicked, but he took out the imperial edict. Here is the imperial edict. What else do you have to say, General Nangong? Oh, what a coincidence. I also have an imperial edict from His Majesty. The Nangong Wentian raised a yellow cloth in his hand and asked with a smile, I wonder if Your Highness, the third prince, would dare to take it out for comparison. My imperial edict has already been verified. I wonder where General Nangong got this fake imperial edict from. Could it be that you and Yi Hao conspired together? The third prince knew that his imperial edict was fake, but the one in the Nangong Wentian's hands was most likely real. Moreover, the Nangong Wentian disappeared after the imperial dragon list. This imperial edict was most likely related to the throne. Moreover, the Nangong Wentian only appeared after Yi Hao appeared. Moreover, Yi Hao had the imperial jade seal. Therefore, the third prince guessed that the contents of the imperial edict were most likely related to Yi Hao. I can prove that third brother's imperial edict is real. I can also prove that third brother's imperial edict is true. Although the princes were unwilling to speak up for the third prince, they had no choice but to side with the third prince. If Yi Hao obtained both the imperial jade seal and the imperial decree, then it would prove that Yi Hao was the emperor, and they would be guilty of treason. What's wrong, third brother? Is your imperial edict real or fake? Yi Hao asked teasingly when he saw that the princes were speaking up for the third prince. When had these princes ever had such tacit understanding? The third prince pretended to be calm. My imperial edict is absolutely true. How could it be fake? If it's real, then Lord Li and the civil and military officials, please examine it. Yi Hao smiled faintly and said softly. Seeing the civil and military officials gather around, the third prince's expression became awkward. Suddenly, the Qin soldier behind the screen followed Yi Hao's instructions and said, the young emperor also wants to know which imperial edict is real and which is fake. Third prince, please take them out. The third prince's expression changed. If it was someone else who asked, he could stop them. But since the mysterious young emperor had asked, he had no choice. He did not dare to offend the mysterious young emperor. Cold sweat appeared on his forehead, and he reluctantly handed the imperial edict to Li Hong. Li Hong respectfully took the imperial edict, and the officials began to study it. This notebook seems to belong to the late emperor, and it has the imperial jade seal on it. I don't think the third prince's imperial edict is fake. Hearing this, the third prince was relieved. He had not wasted his efforts in hiring the best calligraphy master to copy his emperor father's notes. He had even found a master carver to imitate the imperial jade seal of Yi. It was basically impossible to tell if it was real or fake. Seeing that he had fooled all the civil and military officials, the third prince was delighted. He looked at the Nangong Wentian proudly and said, General Nangong, what else do you have to say? At this moment, Everyone looked at the Nangong Wentian. Now that all the civil and military officials had said that the third prince's imperial edict was real, it should not be fake. I want you to give me a reasonable explanation. The third prince is our business partner. If you want to stir up trouble, don't blame us for being ruthless. The marquis behind the third prince stood out and warned the Nangong Wentian. The third prince's interests were closely related to them. At such a crucial moment, of course he would stand up for the third prince. At the same time, he looked at the Nangong Wentian with disdain. Among the people who came, there were 2 martial generals. He was even Wu Ho. Although his strength was not the most outstanding among them, he could still easily deal with the Nangong Wentian. You talk too much. Everyone only saw a blur in front of their eyes. The Wu Ho who spoke just now was instantly sent flying. The Nangong Wentian was still standing there with a smile on his face. However, his words proved that he was the one who did it. So strong. This country is really full of crouching dragons and hidden tigers. The ninth heaven young man looked at the Nangong Wentian in surprise. He realized that the Nangong Wentian's strength was still at the martial warrior realm. In other words, the Nangong Wentian had hidden his strength, and even he could not see through it. When the young man saw the Nangong Wentian looking at him, he smiled. However, a sharp light flashed in the Nangong Wentian's eyes, which made his heart tremble violently. He quickly looked away, not daring to look at the Nangong Wentian again. Oh my God, there is such a fierce person by father's side. Why didn't I notice it before? Yi Hao looked at the Nangong Wentian in surprise. When the Nangong Wentian attacked just now, the aura that burst out was no less than Dianwei's. Yi Hao narrowed his eyes and looked at the Nangong Wentian. Who was this person? How could he be willing to be the commander of the Imperial Guards by father's side? Yi Hao used the detection skill on the Nangong Wentian and found that he could not see through the Nangong Wentian's realm. However, Yi Hao remembered that the assassins sent by the kingdom of Zhao a year ago were all warriors. The Nangong Wentian did not catch the assassins. According to the Nangong Wentian's strength, it should have been easy for the Nangong Wentian to capture the assassins. Yi Hao wondered if the Nangong Wentian was hiding something or if he had other motives. Yi Hao felt a trace of wariness within his heart. If Nangong Wentian had any ulterior motives, he would be in trouble. His greatest helper was the giant dragon, but the giant dragon's strength had been greatly reduced, and he did not know if it could deal with Nangong Wentian. Who are you? Wu Ho, who had been sent flying, stood up with difficulty and asked while clutching his chest. The Nangong Wentian turned to look at Wu Ho, who had stood up, and showed a trace of dissatisfaction. Wu Ho opened his mouth and lowered his head in fear, because he could see a trace of murderous intent in the Nangong Wentian's eyes. Lord Li, please take a look at my imperial edict. The Nangong Wentian kindly handed his imperial edict to Li Hong. Although Li Hong was surprised by the Nangong Wentian's strength, he still took the 2 imperial edicts and began to compare them. Chapter 145. The 2 imperial edicts have the same handwriting. Even the seals are similar. Li Hong frowned after comparing the 2 imperial edicts. One of them was definitely fake. He believed that the third prince's edicts were fake, but he couldn't find a reason to believe it. He couldn't make a wild guess. Lord Li, don't tell me you think that my father would write 2 imperial edicts and let 2 people inherit the throne. The third prince mocked. Don't you dare say that the imperial edict is real just because you're afraid of General Nangong. Nangong Wentian didn't care. He looked at the third prince and said, if you didn't have your father's blood, you would be dead by now. What, General Nangong, are you threatening me? Although the third prince was afraid, he couldn't lose his momentum at this critical moment. Don't worry, I won't kill you. Otherwise, you would be dead by now. Nangong Wentian looked at the third prince with contempt. Just as everyone was in a dilemma, Yi Hao looked at the imperial seal in his hand and suddenly remembered something. Everyone, have you forgotten? The imperial seal is infused with the fate of the nation. As long as you communicate with it using martial arts, you will know whether the seal is real or fake. Li Hong suddenly understood. He smiled embarrassedly and said, thank you for your reminder. Your Highness. I have neglected this point. Li Hong quickly infused some martial arts into the third prince's imperial edict. After waiting for a long time, there was no reaction at all. The third prince started to panic. Third prince, what else do you have to say? Then his copy might not be real. The third prince wouldn't give up until all hope was gone. He believed that Yi Batian couldn't have thought it through so thoroughly. It was impossible for him to realize that something had happened to him when he set out for battle and then write an imperial edict to pass the throne to Yi Hao. So the third prince's edict is fake. This is tantamount to treason. The third prince's words had basically admitted that his imperial edict was a fake. Under everyone's expectant gazes, a small python formed by destiny appeared on the seal of the Nangong Wentian's imperial edict, forming a large leaf. What else do you have to say? Nangong Wentian glanced at the civil and military officials. The princes took a few steps back in fear. Even the powers behind the princes were speechless at this moment. Greetings, Your Majesty. Seeing that Yi Hao's seal was real, all the ministers knew the contents of the imperial edict. Moreover, Yi Hao held the imperial jade seal in his hand. Yi Hao was definitely going to be the emperor. There was no need to choose a new emperor. Everyone, please rise, Yi Hao said in a dignified manner. Zhao Yunhan was also surprised. She didn't expect the outcome to be like this. Yi Hao, this good-for-nothing, became the emperor. But because the Nangong Wentian was here, she didn't dare to be presumptuous. The eyes of the princes flickered. None of them had expected such a scene to occur. If the Nangong Wentian wasn't here, it would be easier for them to take action and snatch Yi Hao's imperial jade seal. That way, they would have military power in their hands. Even if they rebelled, no one would dare to say anything. However, the Nangong Wentian was very powerful. It was obvious that they were on Yi Hao's side. Snatching the imperial jade seal now was simply courting death. However, the princes already had an idea. When the time came, they would take away all their troops and let Yi Hao be an emperor without an army. When the time came, he would have no choice but to obediently hand over the imperial jade seal. The princes smiled proudly again. The young emperor wants to see Yi Hao. Please invite Yi Hao to come behind the screen. Qin Bing's voice came from behind the screen again. Your Majesty, you can't. Some of the loyal ministers of Li Hong and Zhou dynasty hurriedly stopped him. Everyone knew that the mysterious young emperor behind the screen was the first to interact with the three princes. Now that he suddenly asked Yi Hao to go over, who knew if he would attack Yi Hao? Now that Yi Hao had become the emperor of the country of Yi, these ministers naturally had to consider Yi Hao's safety. It's fine. He's just a person who's trying to act mysterious. Why should I be afraid of him? Yi Hao snorted coldly, showing a fearless look. Your Majesty is really a gentleman. The ministers exclaimed. If they compared the other princes to Yi Hao, none of them could compare to Yi Hao, just based on this fearless spirit. The princes stood at the side and sneered. They thought that Yi Hao's words would definitely anger the mysterious young emperor. As long as the mysterious young emperor intervened, the throne would still fall into their hands. Yi Hao walked behind the screen and waited for a while. Then, he changed his voice into the mysterious Xiao Di's playful voice. Lord Li, Lord Zhou, come over here for a moment. Haha, just as I thought. The princes tried hard to suppress their laughter. Li Hong and Zhou dynasty were against the mysterious young emperor sitting on the throne. Now that Yi Hao was called over, Li Hong and Zhou dynasty were called over as well. They were definitely in trouble. Lord Li, you can't. A few of Li Hong's disciples hurriedly tried to stop him, their faces full of anxiety. Li Hong smiled comfortingly and said loudly, Your Majesty's body is priceless, but you have such courage. As a minister, I, Li Hong, have nothing to be afraid of. Li Hong and Zhou dynasty walked side by side with their heads held high and chests puffed out as they walked behind the screen. The ministers couldn't help but tear up. The two of them had just walked past the screen when they saw that the person sitting on the throne was actually Yi Hao. They couldn't help but be shocked. Li Hong was about to speak when Yi Hao immediately stopped him. Lord Li, Lord Zhou, thank you for your loyalty to the kingdom of Yi. Yi Hao stood up and lowered his voice to thank the two of them sincerely. Your Majesty, you can't do that. Although the two of them were puzzled, they still spoke up immediately. Zhou dynasty was also confused. Shouldn't the mysterious young emperor be behind the screen? Why did the mysterious young emperor disappear? Moreover, Yi Hao looked as if he already knew about it. Could it be that the princes and Yi Hao were putting on a show together? That was even more impossible. The princes couldn't wait to cut Yi Hao into pieces. Why would they help Yi Hao put on a show? My lord, the giant dragon's voice came from Small Duchy. The king of Celestial Wolf Kingdom reported fearfully as he knelt before his throne. A palace maid was even more frightened when she saw the emperor's appearance. She immediately prostrated herself on the ground and trembled all over. The man sitting on the throne was dressed in a black robe. A thick demonic aura filled the entire palace hall. When he heard the Emperor of Celestial Wolf's voice, he immediately laughed maniacally. Haha, it's been a month. I finally found it first. The man sitting on the throne was the group of people sent by the blood demon ancestor. Although he wasn't a martial emperor, he had reached the second rank of Emperor Wu. He had come out to find the person who owned the giant dragon. Originally, he only wanted to stay in the Celestial Wolf Kingdom to recuperate. He didn't expect that he would stumble upon the giant dragon's roar. If it were any other time, he would be afraid of the giant dragon. However, when he heard the dragon's roar, he knew that it was only a martial spirit realm cultivator. Bring your men over first. I'll catch up in a while. You'll be rewarded. The black-robed Emperor Wu instructed the Emperor of Celestial Wolf. With a wave of his arm, the palace maid who was prostrating herself on the ground threw herself into his arms. The palace maid allowed the black-robed Emperor Wu to tear her clothes apart violently. She held back her tears and didn't dare to resist. Chapter 146. The two of you. The reason why I did this was because my royal father was abducted and I was targeted as well. However, I couldn't allow the Yi country to be destroyed in the hands of the few of them. Hence, I could only use this method to conceal my identity and gain control over the Yi country. Yi Hao explained to the two of them. If it wasn't for ZMO, Er's letter, Yi Hao would definitely return and control the country of Yi with iron-blooded means to complete the mission. However, ZMO, mentioned in the letter that although she had returned, there would still be people who would follow her. However, that didn't stop other people from continuing to search for Yi Hao, so Yi Hao had to pay attention to hiding his identity. Therefore, Yi Hao came up with this idea. This was also the reason why Yi Hao had to fabricate the identity of a mysterious young emperor, because he had to control the country of Yi to complete the mission. However, if he revealed his true identity, it would attract the snobbish people behind ZMO, and they would come knocking on his door. But Li Hong didn't understand why Yi Hao had to appear in person again. Wouldn't it be better if he kept using a fake identity? Yi Hao knew that the two of them would ask this question. He smiled and explained, because I want them to know that Yi Hao is dead. Li Hong's expression changed, and he looked at Yi Hao in shock. Your Majesty, you mean to use a fake identity to kill yourself and let others think that you were killed? Li Hong didn't dare to say the word dead. However, he looked at Yi Hao with more respect and admiration. Yi Hao was not even 15 years old, and he already had such a strategy. If he hadn't told them personally, they would be kept in the dark. However, Yi Hao told them such an important thing. This showed that Yi Hao trusted them, and they were very grateful. In Li Hong's eyes, although the 18th prince was the youngest, he didn't disappoint Yi Hao, but he didn't let down His Majesty's love. Those princes who thought they were smart were all played by Yi Hao. Li Hong wondered if Yi Hao was pretending to be a fool. If he was, then it was even more terrifying. How is this still a young man? He was completely a monster. With the Yi country in his hands, it would be hard for it not to grow stronger. Li Hong looked at Yi Hao. He didn't know what to say and looked at Yi Hao nervously. Your Majesty, may I ask you a question? Yi Hao looked at Li Hong, indicating that Li Hong could speak freely. Your Majesty, how do you plan to deal with the emperors? Li Hong looked at Yi Hao, trying to see if Yi Hao's expression had changed. Give him the title of unfettered king. I will order people to build a mansion and put them under house arrest so that they won't have to worry about food for the rest of their lives. Yi had already thought about this. No matter what, the emperors had the blood of Yi Batian flowing in their veins. He definitely couldn't do such a thing. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to answer to Yi Batian. The unfettered king was the best choice for the emperors. Thank you, your majesty. Li Hong immediately knelt on the ground. This was the answer he wanted. He was afraid that Yi Hao was young and impetuous and would do something disgraceful. In the 10,000 Kingdoms continent, fratricide happened every day for the sake of the throne. It wasn't easy for Yi Hao to do this. Yi Hao instructed Li Hong to stand up. He then asked, I wonder if Lord Li understands General Nangong well? How loyal is he to the Yi country? Also, do you know what Nangong's cultivation base was like in the past? Li Hong pondered for a moment before replying. General Nangong has always addressed your majesty and the late emperor as brothers in private. There shouldn't be any doubt about his loyalty to the Yi country. However, General Nangong's strength is something that even this old subject is shocked by. He definitely wasn't this strong in the past, unless he encountered a fortuitous encounter. Fortuitous encounter? Yi Hao narrowed his eyes and pondered. Li Hong continued. There are countless hidden treasures in the 10,000 Kingdoms continent. In history, there was no lack of people who encountered fortuitous encounters and soared to the heavens. For General Nangong's strength to soar, this is the only possibility. Yi Hao shook his head and didn't want to think too much about it. As long as the Nangong Wentian was loyal to the Yi country, that was enough. As for whether or not the Yi country could recruit him, that would depend on whether the Nangong Wentian was willing to submit to the Yi country. Yi Hao took out the corpse that he had prepared earlier from his spatial ring. At the same time, he had the corpse change into his own clothes. In order to avoid being recognized, Yi Hao smashed the corpse's head with a punch and roared, Arrogant brat, do you really think that you are the emperor? Go to hell then. After that, Yi Hao tossed the corpse to the back of the screen. Yi Hao was actually killed. The mysterious young emperor really made his move. There shouldn't be any mistake. The clothes he is wearing are definitely Yi Hao's. Everyone had been staring at the screen. When they heard Yi Hao's roar, they jumped in fright. After that, they saw the corpse on the ground. All of them felt fear in their hearts. Even the princes felt a lingering fear. Luckily, they danced. Otherwise, they wouldn't even know how they died. You're courting death. Nangong Wentian saw the corpse on the ground. His pupils constricted, and he flew into a rage. Like a cannonball, he rushed towards the screen. Sword! Nangong Wentian was just about to use his martial arts technique when he saw Yi Hao sitting on the dragon throne. General Nangong, you don't have time to explain. Help me first. Pretend to be seriously injured and run away. Yi Hao whispered. Nangong Wentian spat out a mouthful of blood without thinking. His whole body flew backward in an instant. Brat, I will not let you go. Nangong Wentian said this and immediately ran out of the palace. Humph. A mere martial spirit dares to be so presumptuous. Yi Hao used the last of his disguise elixir and turned into the mysterious young emperor again. The screen in front of him was smashed by a blast of air. Li Hong and Zhou Di knelt down cooperatively. Everyone thought that there would be an earth-shattering battle. Who would have thought that Nangong Wentian would be defeated by the mysterious young emperor? He was seriously injured and spat out a mouthful of blood and ran away. Oh my God, this mysterious young emperor is too strong. A martial spirit expert was seriously injured and spat out a mouthful of blood and ran away. Everyone's eyes were filled with astonishment. So strong. Zhao Yunhan's cherry lips parted in shock. Her eyes were filled with adoration and yearning. This is the man that I, Zhao Yunhan, should have. After that good-for-nothing Yi Hao. So what if he's the emperor now? He's still deader than dead. Zhao Yunhan did not even look at the corpse on the ground. She felt her heart beating violently. She quickly suppressed this feeling, and her eyes flashed with coldness. I, Zhao Yunhan, do not need a man. All men are my tools and stepping stones. He is no exception. He is just a little stronger. Sob sob, brother Yi Hao, Li Yura looked at the clothes on the corpse. The corpse's figure was almost the same as Yi Hao's. She suddenly pounced on him sadly. You bad guy. Why did you kill my brother Yi Hao? I hate you. Sob, sob. Li Yura shouted angrily at the young man on the dragon throne. Her eyes were filled with hatred and tears kept falling. Chapter 147. From now on, the country of Yi will be renamed as the Fire Dragon Empire. I will be Yin Long's young emperor. Yi Hao ignored everyone's reaction. 32. He sat on the dragon throne and said softly, What? Everyone, including the sons of the emperors, was shocked. The memory of Yi Hao defeating the Nangong Wentian was still fresh in their minds. No one dared to speak out loud. No one would have thought that this mysterious young emperor would take the country of Yi for himself. Then all their efforts would have been in vain. Yi Hao interrupted their discussion. If any of you have any opinions, you can speak up. I'm a very easygoing person. The smile on Yi Hao's face was like a devil smile. He glanced at everyone, and no one dared to look him in the eye. Easygoing? Who are you trying to fool? The 9th prince was lying in the grand hall, and he had yet to wake up. There was also the headless corpse of Yi Hao. Even a martial spirit realm expert had spat out blood and fled. Who would dare to resist? Thud, thud, thud. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps could be heard from outside. There was also the sound of metal clashing against metal. The 5 princes were filled with regret. They thought that they had found a strong backer. Who knew that they had invited a wolf into their house, and even gave up their country to someone else? The princes looked at the forces behind them, but in the end, they all ignored them. Hearing the footsteps outside, the prince's confidence rose again. Young Emperor, this isn't appropriate. Although our realms aren't as high as yours, we have an army of 300,000. Are you sure you can kill 300,000 people? The princes had completely turned against him and threatened him mercilessly. 300,000 soldiers? Where? Yi Hao looked at the princes pitifully and asked with a smile. Before the princes could speak, Ran Min, Yu Fei, Suda, Hua Xiong, and 20 other generals walked into the grand hall. Young Emperor, what else do you have to say? The sons of the emperors saw their trusted generals walk in and felt more confident. I hope that you can take back what you said just now. Don't force us to fight to the death. A life and death struggle? Are you worthy? Yi Hao chuckled. Does the young emperor really think that you can defeat 300,000 soldiers? The son of the emperors shouted in agitation. Ask them if they will listen to you. Yi Hao yawned and pointed at the 20 generals. The princes were clear that Yi Hao was determined to eat up the country of Yi. They didn't hesitate any longer. Take some of this renegade. However, Old K and the others just stood there without moving. It was as if they didn't hear what the emperors said. Everyone was curious, and Li Hong and the others were even more nervous. They all knew how the Nangong Wentian flew out. That had nothing to do with Yi Hao. It was the Nangong Wentian who flew out. Although they weren't sure of Yi Hao's strength, all the generals of the Yi country were present. Among them were Old K, Yu Fei, and Suda. These people were very famous in the country of Yi. If they all attacked together, it was hard to say if Yi Hao could handle them. However, Li Hong noticed that Yi Hao didn't seem to care at all. Moreover, he didn't seem surprised that the generals didn't make a move. Li Hong thought of a terrifying possibility, but he couldn't convince himself to believe it. That these generals were all Yi Hao's men. However, was that possible? Although these generals were all promoted within a year, it was easier said than done to subdue them. Or could it be that Yi Hao had been secretly controlling the situation in the country of Yi for the past year? Li Hong looked at Xiahou Dun. Xiahou Dun was recommended by Li Hong to serve in the army. Now, Xiahou Dun was already in control of a large army. Li Hong noticed that Xiahou Dun didn't seem to notice him. His gaze was completely different from his usual self. Take down these princes. Just when everyone was still puzzled, Yi Hao suddenly ordered. Over 20 generals instantly seized all the princes. Cheng Yaojin, what the hell are you doing? You even dare to capture me? The 5th prince couldn't believe that Cheng Yaojin, who shared a bed with him every day, would suddenly make a move on him. My apologies. My lord wants me to do it. Old Chung, don't dare to disobey. Chung Yaojin smiled embarrassedly. However, he didn't show any mercy and subdued the fifth prince in an instant. My lord, it's him? The fifth prince felt as if he was dreaming. He looked at the young man on the dragon throne in disbelief. He couldn't understand how the young emperor on the white dragon throne was Chung Yaojin's lord. We pay our respects to my lord. Of the 20 generals, other than the ones who couldn't kneel, everyone else respectfully knelt on the ground. We pay our respects to my lord. The voices of the 20 generals filled the entire hall, following which the 300,000 soldiers outside knelt on the ground one after another. Their voices shook the heavens, each wave louder than the previous, filling the entire sky of Yi. All the citizens in the city didn't know what was happening. All they saw was that the entire city was filled with kneeling soldiers. Each and every one of them knelt on the ground, shouting, "My lord." Millions of citizens knelt on the ground at the same time. The roar of the giant dragon resounded. The giant dragon flew above the palace and spoke in human language. From now on, Yi will be renamed as the Fire Dragon Empire. The emperor will be young Emperor Yin Long. Whoever disobeys, kill. Whoever dares to invade, kill. Whoever dares to disrespect, kill. The dragon's aura spread throughout the entire Yi. Even the snobs in the surroundings could feel the dragon's voice and aura. Fire Dragon Empire. Young Emperor Yin Long. Fire Dragon Empire. Young Emperor Yin Long. All the citizens were shouting loudly as they looked at the giant dragon in the sky. They were all guessing who their new emperor was to be able to own a giant dragon. Hearing the shouts outside, the faces of the princes turned pale. They fell to the ground in a daze. They knew it was over. Everything was over. Everything that they had was like a fleeting cloud. Their fate was in the hands of this young Emperor Yin Long. They had no chance at all. Their subordinates had become his subordinates. Their citizens had also become his citizens. They had nothing left. The few of you, get out of my Yin Long. Remember to tell your lord that I, Yin Long, will slaughter my way to your city. Yi Hao looked at the forces behind the princes and spoke with contempt. It wasn't that Yi Hao was merciful and didn't want to kill these people. Instead, Yi Hao wanted to borrow their hands to spread the news of Yi Hao's death. This way, he would have enough time to develop and grow. Moreover, the Fire Dragon Empire had just been established. It needed to be baptized with blood. The forces behind these people were the best targets to start with. Arrogant, incomparably arrogant. This was the impression everyone had of Yi Hao. He had just established his country. It was fine if he didn't rope in the nearby snobs. However, he actually wanted to go against 5 snobs at once. Among them, there was 1 king snob, 3 marquis snobs, and 1 duchy. Chapter 148. Zhao country was the weakest among them, but they still had 200,000 soldiers. Furthermore, they had 33 marquisate countries and at least 10 subsidiary countries. Although some of them were only marquisate countries, they still controlled at least 2 or 3 marquisate countries. Ninth Heaven was the only marquisate country, but it still had 2 or 3 marquisate countries and at least a dozen dukedoms. In other words, because of Yi Hao's words, they had to face the encirclement of millions of soldiers. Yi country only had 300,000 soldiers at most. How could they compare? No matter how strong you were, if you had millions of soldiers for you to kill, your hands would go soft. Ding dong, congratulations on completing the heart of the strong mission. The reward has been issued. Why aren't you leaving? Do you want me to send you off? Yi Hao asked mockingly when he saw the group of people. No one wanted to go against Yi Hao at this moment, so they could only leave the palace quickly. They were afraid that Yi Hao would make a move. If that happened, they would be finished. Yi Hao looked at Zhao Yunhan with disdain. Why was this woman still here? Was she still trying to get close to him? Why aren't you leaving? Zhao Yunhan pretended to be shy. Xiao Di, you killed my fiancé. I'm yours now. If you don't take responsibility, where can I go? Zhao Yunhan thought that with her looks, even if she couldn't become the empress, she would at least be a concubine. Yi Hao wanted to slap her to death. Her fiancé was dead, but she wasn't sad at all. She even wanted her enemy to take responsibility. How King despicable. Yi Hao couldn't be bothered with her at first. But how could he not teach this kind of woman a lesson? She wanted Yi Futian to take responsibility only because Yi Futian was strong and wanted to gain benefits from Yi Futian. Yi Hao smiled gently and said, "Take responsibility? How can I take responsibility? My palace still lacks a personal palace maid. I wonder if you're willing." Zhao Yunhan felt that she had heard wrongly. Personal maid? No matter what, she was still a noble, and she was pretty. Yi Hao only made her a maid. How much did he look down on her? Zhao Yunhan felt like her lungs were about to explode. If you don't want to, then forget it. Hurry up and leave. Yi Hao also had a trace of disgust toward Zhao Yunhan. If Zhao Yunhan could leave, he would be more than happy. According to his thinking, Zhao Yunhan was so proud and arrogant, she would definitely turn around and leave. If she didn't go berserk now, it meant that Zhao Yunhan's heart was very scary. Zhao Yunhan smiled and said, "Young Emperor, you must be joking. Yunhan is already satisfied to be able to stay by your side as a palace maid." No matter how well Zhao Yunhan hid it, Yi Hao caught the hint of unwillingness in her eyes. He didn't expect Zhao Yunhan to go all out. "Then you can leave first. I'll look for you tonight. Look for me at night." Humph. I already said that all men are lustful. I don't believe that I, Zhao Yunhan, am unable to conquer you with my charm. Zhao Yunhan's competitive spirit was ignited. Her dignity had been trampled on again today. But in order to become stronger, she couldn't tolerate anything. Yi Hao looked at Li Ura, who was still hugging the headless body and crying. He couldn't help but feel sorry for her. He got up and walked to Li Ura's side. Just as he was about to say something, he was interrupted by Li Ura. "Get out of my way, you bad guy," Li Ura cried and looked at Yi Hao with hatred. "Brother Yi Hao? Wu Luo, don't be willful." Li Hong saw his daughter's willfulness and his face turned ugly. He reprimanded her loudly. Yi Hao waved his hand, indicating Li Hong to stop talking. He didn't change his voice back. "How dare you talk to me like that? Aren't you afraid of me? You care so much about Yi Hao, don't tell me you like him." "Humph, others may be afraid of you, but I'm not." Li Ura wrinkled her nose and said. But when she heard Yi Hao ask her if she liked Yi Hao, she immediately recalled the scene from a year ago. Her face blushed again. But when she remembered that Yi Hao was killed by the person in front of her, she said angrily again, "What does it have to do with you? I will definitely avenge my brother Yi Hao." Yi Hao didn't want to tease this silly girl anymore. From Li Ura's expression, Yi Hao could tell that this girl definitely liked him. Otherwise, she wouldn't care about him so much. Yi Hao was also touched. "Silly girl, if you like me, just say it. Who likes you? Dream on." Li Ura wanted to refute Yi Hao's words, but she suddenly realized that Yi Hao's voice had changed. She looked at Yi Hao in shock. "Luo is very important right now." Li Hong quickly stopped her. After all, there were many civil and military officials in the imperial court. If someone leaked the news, then everything that Yi Hao had done would be wasted. "Oh." Li Ura quickly covered her mouth with her small hand. Yi Hao reached out and gently wiped the tears on Li Ura's face. "Silly girl." Li Ura lowered her head shyly. Her heart was beating wildly. "He couldn't have found out that I liked him, right? No. Why would I like a hooligan like him? But why was I so sad just now? Could it be that I really liked him? He looked so impressive just now." Everyone please rise. Only then did Yi Hao realize that all the civil and military officials were still kneeling on the ground. He had almost forgotten about them, but no one dared to show a trace of dissatisfaction on their faces. "Men, find a bigger courtyard for these princes and lock them all up." At Yi Hao's command, more than 10 soldiers rushed in and dragged all the emperors out. "I don't care what you were like in the past. From now on, no matter why you are willing to submit to me, if you do anything to let me or the Fire Dragon Empire down, don't blame me for being merciless." Yi Hao walked slowly among the civil and military officials. Everyone he passed lowered their heads in fear. They were afraid of the young man in front of them and didn't dare to look him in the eye. From now on, Li Hong will continue to be the left prime minister, and Zhou will be the right prime minister. Who has any objections? We will obey the Lord's imperial edict. The officials knelt and shouted in unison. Many people looked at Zhou with jealousy. They didn't understand why the person who opposed him in the beginning was made the prime minister. But no one dared to ask. Yu Fei. What Yi Hao wanted to do now was to get rid of the remaining few snobs. Yu Fei knelt on the ground. Your servant is here. This young emperor orders you to lead 50,000 soldiers and conquer the 10 surrounding barbarians. Kill anyone who resists. Yes. Yu Fei stood up and stood to the side. The remaining 50,000 soldiers will stay in the capital. The rest will follow me to destroy Zhao. Zhao was Yi Hao's first enemy country in this world. Since Yi Batian hadn't been completely eradicated, he would leave it to him. None of the snobs from Qian and Ninth Heaven could escape. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.